Hopefully we're okay. Welcome to the Hawks Nest, a live stream show where, like our Seattle Seahawks, we're experiencing technical difficulties. It's the way of life in this technical world. And so, sorry about a little bit of the delay here. Hopefully I'm coming through okay. If the chat can give me a thumbs up on that to let me know, because I was wrestling there with some of the electronics in the background here on this side of it. But I thank you for watching, as long as we are coming through hopefully clearly. Please, we'll see. Make sure here we're good to go here. Just give me just one thumbs up here in the chat if we can, and we're not maybe not coming through. No, it looks like we're good. Okay. All right, I got a no coming through. It's okay, Jordan. We're okay. Okay, I can hear and see you. Perfect. Well, thank you. All right. Well, we've got a lot to go along and get on into here today, and well, let's start off a little bit of fun, because of course we're going to probably have to turn over some, tough things, and we'll have optimism here too. This is not going to be just merely a show around the bad, but let's face it, we've lost 4 or 5 here in Seattle. We're in a season right now where I think we are reaching a bit of a crossroads. This upcoming matchup against the Rams, post whatever happens in this Rams game, we have a team that has 4 wins, a couple of really quality wins at that, on the road against a first place Falcons team. Denver Bronco team that certainly has a winning record now and is looking pretty strong, and yet we have the 4 losses as well. So, where the hell is this team? What are they really? That becomes the question, I think, at the forefront of many of Seahawks fandom's mind, no matter where you feel they're going, or how optimism or how less optimism you might have out there, as I think there's a wide variance on that, much like this season for your Seahawks. So let's get into some of that, but let's jump off here to the good fun side of this a little bit if we can. I want to tip of the cap to Tyler Lockett, who this past game was able to rise on up into the top 100 now of wide receivers in NFL history for yardage. Tyler's in 8,378 yards, 97th all-time, passing the likes of Curtis Gondway, Golden Tate, Wesley Walker, Eddie Kennison, and Greg Jennings, a quality wide receiver. He's now going to look to a couple hundred more yards here, be able to get past Plaxico Burress, Jimmy Graham, and Hall of Famer Paul Warfield at 92, if he just has a medium output level here for the rest of the season. So congrats there out there to Tyler. That's cool to see as he continues to cap off a very productive career. Want to get into this part here, and this isn't as much Seahawks related, but it is related to often a discussion point that comes up here in our chat quite a bit, which is about the quarterback position and the magnificence of simply just targeting your quarterback, of the want and the willingness to just go get the guy is the end all be all. And that the draw to do that, and then the draw in succession to then have that quarterback start immediately, to be given no time to be able to sit on the bench and to learn better, that you need to get out there, Rook. You need to validate why we made you a top whatever pick. And Anthony Richardson's the latest guy to have this go down, as he gets benched because he tapped out on a play, which I've been told by people who have had oblique injuries, like we know he's suffering through, that it can be hard to sometimes breathe with those injuries. But it's neither here nor there. There's just no patience for these young guys when they're put on the football field. And one of the reasons I so much lament necessarily just going after the quarterback at the forefront at all times on this, because you end up having this draw to put them on the field prematurely. And then they are, if they're not being given a really great supporting cast in front of them, oftentimes being set up to fail. And even if they're given a good supporting cast, sometimes still they're not ready to go. And they just could benefit from that time of sitting on the bench. Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Will Levis, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett, bench. All guys in just recent years. This isn't me going back 10 seasons and cherry picking. This is, as shown here on this tweet, I think symbolic of the fact that it's not just an example of why you got to be very careful tiptoe on this ice, very careful, rather than just thinking with the broad brush that we want to sometimes paint with this one of just go get that quarterback. That'll fix this thing on up. That'll hardly bring this to the right spot of things. And I think that we've got to be careful on this one. And the most important part beyond being careful about the guy you pick is, again, making sure that you have the supporting cast in place so that if you do put him on the football field, he's not failing now because of other people. And I think that is sometimes often the case with these quarterbacks. Not all of these guys, name necessarily, but I do think that that's oftentimes is the case at the forefront of these decisions. So another one bites the dust. Our guy, Anthony Richardson, goes down to the bench. We're going to listen to a couple of cut-ups here, and then I'm going to touch on a question that's here asked right up at the front of my chat here today, which I think is a good question at that by Kirk Stemmer. Are you in trade or out, or am I in trade? Essentially what he's asking, and Kurt, it's a great question. Would I be for or against trading at the deadline? And I'm going to answer this question as part of our kind of roundup here that we're going to go through, and we're going to go through a lot of different directions here on the front of this. But it's as always, an answer I'm going to give you on this, which is going to be a little bit nuanced. It's not going to be just as straightforward as a yes or no. But I do want to get into this because I think that this is a very important point, especially if the Seattle Seahawks come off of this game with the Rams losing in much the same manner that they've been losing recently. But let's get to a couple clips here of Macdonald I want to play for you guys. And I just want to get a little bit of some of your feelings on it, but I'm also going to give you, of course, some of mine on it as well. And this is on 710, where he does his interview every Monday. And I thought he's done a good job here as Mike, as a young coach, of being open and honest with this process and not trying to cover up the blemishes or what needs to be fixed or cleaned up. I think even when he's not able to get really super specific, he does a good job of locking into, even in just kind of subtleties of letting you know kind of what's inherently at the heart of the problems that are going on, where the problems lie and where they do exist. Let's first get into a little bit of his thoughts here on kind of the current state of things as far as the defense. You guys have probably heard this clip, but I just want to play it for you one more time because this is going to bend into Kirk, that answer to your question.
I think you got to start making some decisions on where to narrow it down. You can't focus on everything,
right?
So taking out the stuff that we feel like is kind of like sunk costs at this point. Maybe trying to trim that, and then really focusing on and honing in on the stuff that we want to go excel at, and that's stuff that I feel like maybe opportunities that we haven't been able to take advantage of at this point. And stuff that we do feel like we're doing well, we can try to build on those.
Is that simplifying a little bit? Trying to narrow down what you're doing and simplify it a little bit?
I wouldn't say simplify. I mean, I don't think we're doing complicated things right now. I would say maybe less. Maybe less is more at this point. Maybe just getting better at it. I think you got to start making some decisions on where to narrow it down. You can't focus on everything,
right?
So taking out the stuff that we feel like is kind of like sunk costs at this point. Maybe trying to trim that, and then really focusing on and honing in on the stuff that we want to go excel at, and that's stuff that I feel like maybe opportunities that we haven't been able to take advantage of at this point, and stuff that we do feel like we're doing well. We can try to build on those.
Is that simplifying a little bit? I
think you got to.
Sorry, I forgot about that on loop. So essentially, he's talking a lot about the sunk cost, about dialing things back in this clip. Sunk cost is definitely a word that makes your ears start to jump up a little bit when he's saying, we keep trying this, we keep trying this, we keep trying this, and since we've been trying it with this personnel, let's say, or maybe it's just the different wrinkles that they're trying to get into with this, it's that's not taking, and if we continue to put into that, we've reached the point where we've just got to say that that's not going to bring us returns because we've put so much into it up until this point. Not a good indicator for me. Not a good indicator for me. And when it comes to Macdonald, yes, he is a young coach, but this is the third destination point in which he has onboarded his scheme to a given spot. So you have the Michigan Wolverines, who did not run a like defense that he came in and overtook, showed the way to those guys, got that defense onboarded pretty quickly, got the coaches up to speed pretty fast. Then you go to the Ravens, and yes, it does take 10 games at that point, but my whole point on this is that he has a pretty established way about going about this in order to educate these players to get them up to that speed point. You know, how do I make this process go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to get down to 10? And so when he's halfway into the season and he's been applying this model that he's applied at a couple other places, and he's saying, we're actually having to simplify it, sunk cost. This does raise a little bit of not concern for me on any of this. And let's just be open, honest on this, by the way. This is not going to be anything about not the right coach, not the right general manager. This is all just about what's the appropriate direction right now. If things go like this, it's also about, accurately kind of figuring out where this team really is at right now, as far as their level of play. Are they just an inch away here from being contenders, from playoff contender, or is this something that's maybe taking a little bit longer inherently at the heart of what is? So let's get to another clip here. I think these are all going to kind of trail along a certain line from this show. Let me make sure there's not the damn loop button on so that the stupid thing doesn't flip back over there again when the clip's done. All right, let's hear this. To his point, this is a question about using the playbook.
Yeah, kind of in that vein, how much of the playbook do you feel like you guys got in? Offensively, defensively, is everything there?
No, and the reason is because you can't. We haven't executed the things well enough and created the situations where we want to be able to get to everything. I think you can speak on both sides of the ball. So it's frustrating, you have some things that would help schematically, but the answer at the end of the day isn't the X's and O's. It's really not. I mean,
so yeah, you can't use everything you want to use in the playbook. I have been sort of having suspicions I brought up to you guys in recent weeks that we're not seeing this defense as it was with the Ravens in anything really close to the iteration of the Ravens, in my opinion. Maybe in the coverages, what you're doing on the back end, but with what you're doing with the fronts, it's very simplified and very basic. And so this again comes in combo with the last sunk cost deal where I go, okay, so you're halfway into the year, you've trained this process before, you're dialing back on the process with these players, and you're not able to run your full playbook because you can't trust them to run your game calls. I see things here that could help us a little bit here. And he's not saying it's just this. So I'm not saying that this is there is no one holy issue here when it is looked this kind of bad across the board. There's a lot of different things you can point to. But then you do come to it and you go, okay, these guys aren't learning this at this point. They're not coming along. Does that light bulb come on in week 10, 11, 12? Well, maybe, but if you're running things from a simplified version of the version you'd actually like to run it, are they really learning at that point? Or are we just staying in Simpleville because they can't handle the math? That's the question in my mind. I'm not saying I have an answer on this. I'm just saying it's the question that poses in my mind when I hear him say this. It's the thing that I wonder about. Let's go to this last clip here, and then I will answer finally that question you asked. And this one is a little bit about whether or not the players are overthinking
A new scheme for all of these guys. Is there a little bit of that thinking versus reacting going on?
I don't want to attribute to like thinking, or I don't know if that's the right way to attribute to where we're at right now, if that makes sense. It needs to be more violent. It needs to be more physical. We need to get more hats to the ball more consistently. We've done that on tape. We've done it in the past 8 weeks, but it hasn't been as frequent as it needs to be a championship caliber defense.
The running game, throughout my life, I've been told by many smart men, much smarter than I, that know football at a much higher level than I, uniformly to a man will tell you that oftentimes the running game will be about effort and want and can do. Rallying to the ball is a point of emphasis that goes back to many, many other coaching staffs. And why they ask their players to do it is there's that tendency as you get tired to not, that guy will go make that play. Let me catch my breath. No, get to the ball. Have your full effort at play in and play out. Mike's saying here, yeah, it does show up a little bit. We've seen it, but it's not there near consistent enough. And that does come down more, in my opinion, to effort than it does talent. The Arizona Cardinals have started out this season, and we're going to talk about this in the NFC West Roundup point, not Roundup, but my little look at what's going on here with our division. And they're not near where we're at on a talent front. They've not had their first round pick even play. The best pass rusher that they hope to put a lot of the hopes on their pass rush this year isn't playing. Their backup out. And that team comes out every week for John Gannon, and they're flying around. They're playing on both sides of the ball at maximum energy, at maximum effort. They're getting every last drip and drop out of their talent that they may have. And they're winning football games, and they're staying in football games against ball clubs like the Bills on the road in Buffalo, 10 a.m., better than we were in this game. I think that this is a little bit of where I come to now wanting to answer this question and saying, I'm not looking for this team to be great this year. This wasn't about the wins and losses on that front of things. This is about these guys that are currently here may or may not be guys that are for Mike Macdonald's system. They may or may not be fits. Some of that may or may not have anything to do with their talent, that they're really good, talented players, but they don't fit to the system because they're not going to do the things he needs a player to do from position A, B, C, D, E, F. And when I hear him talk about this stuff, and when I think about it, and when I watch the All-22 once again, I'm just not seeing a connected spirit, and I'm not seeing always that effort of energy level there that he's talking about a little bit there, needing to be consistently there. I don't know that halfway into the season, this is something that you should be begging of your players. It's like this light bulb should have been coming on. And why maybe we're seeing it replaying a bit over week here over the past few weeks is because it's not coming on. And so we come to the answer to that question now, and it's a great one at that, and I know it was going to be one of the big ones over the top of this. The NFL deadline is on Tuesday. You don't have 3 or 4 weeks to look across the landscape and let the weather play out and see what's going to happen then at that point. You have a big decision to make right now. And there are trades that can be made sometimes in desperation by teams that want to just get rid of a player and they don't care what they're getting back in return. That's not what I'm talking about doing. There are situations on the other side of it where teams will come calling for certain players and they're willing to give you the star, the sun, and the moon to make the deal happen. And that it can be a time of year where you're able to maximize out the draft capital in a way that you might not be able to do in an offseason on the same given player. If we're going to play the Rams this upcoming week, and it's going to be another sub-embarrassing kind of game. And this has, unfortunately, and I hope it's not going to be. I want to see the team win here. So please, I want people to get their emotions when I say this, but I'm just trying to analyze what I'm seeing. I'm not trying to be too much with the dog in the fight on this. And this Rams team has invested heavily in their offensive line. They want to run the ball. They have a talented running back. They have Kupp. They have Puka back, guys that have given us fits both individually and now paired together. So I think it has a lot of potential trouble town here in how this might set up. And if that happens and you go to 4-5, and now we're in sort of the 5th embarrassing loss in 6 games going this way, I think you've got to be more into that sell mode at the trade deadline. Not in fire sell, not in that you're going to just offload assets, but that if there's teams that are going to come and there's a deal that makes sense from Schneider's perspective to get draft capital back here, then I think you got to start to do that. Not only because you most likely have a collection of some guys here that aren't going to quite fit this thing, but then also too, because I think it could send definitely a message down in this locker room where if there is, and I'm not saying I know 100% with certainty, but if this does exist where there is a lack of energy or effort, or there is lack of not getting that consistent effort play in and play out, that type of thing can resonate through a locker room and start to maybe send a wake-up call here. Coach Carroll and Schneider, when they first walked in the door, didn't in that first year necessarily get to snipping and cutting and we're going to roll through. And then they became very famous for the amount of churn that they went through over a 3-year period. It's like 1,600 players or some ridiculous amount that they went through over that period. And part of what they were doing with that was instilling within it the mindset of the players of, you better toe the line. You better not get too comfy here and that you're all set and you don't have to give out all the energy, that you can do just the bare minimum and that's going to be good enough, because it's not good enough. And you'd hear this resonate on down to a guy like Sherman long after he had gotten paid, still talking about why he went hard in practice, because he remembered those days, those players being churned through and how cutthroat it got and how that put that mentality on play that any given point, that man behind you can come get your job. And it'd be great to just be able to just say, go do your job and not have to have somebody hot on the back of your heels in that way, or to make the players have to understand that that's a real possibility here. But unfortunately, if it's going to continue to look this bad, desperate times, desperate measures. I don't know what to say about it other than that. So I don't want to be on full on just sell no matter what. But I will say that if it's going to be another one after this week and you don't have any more time to make these choices, that you have to basically choose by Tuesday what you're going to do on this one based on what I've seen from this team so far. What we were hoping to see from the team beyond wins and losses was the incremental growth. Was that, okay, it's not that you may end out of the season at 6 wins, but does the team get better as they go along? Do you see the cohesion coming together? Are you able to add more on the playbook instead of less? And that's a little bit of why I think you got to be willing to make this move potentially if you're John in the situation and how you look at it. And I don't have any problem if he doesn't. I'm not going to be squawking here since you should have moved this guy and you should have moved that guy. Hey, if you want to just trust in the pocket, stay with this the rest of the season, that's a great approach as well to fully make your assessment at that point. I'm just saying that if there's some ripe piece of fruit that's going to land in your lap, that you can't let that ripe piece of fruit fall out of your lap simply because you want to have and hold on to, I think, the hope here that this year is going to be the year of contention. I can't remember the last team that was in contention that had this many embarrassing losses like this over the course of a season, where you're getting spanked in so many ways. It's weird to me that some people are looking at this Bills game and walking away from it saying, oh, but it was just this play, and but if that just that play, and if he just doesn't snap it over his head there, and we got physically dominated on both sides of the ball, and it's happening on a weekly basis. That's not a one play thing. That's you just don't have the horses up front to get the job done thing. Let's keep it moving though. I don't want to stay too long on that type of thing, and let's roll on through some of our segments. Let's start out with our PFF grades of the week. Alrighty. Looking at the grades here this week, I will warn you they may not be too pretty on this side of things. AJ Barner leading the way with an 85.5 grade, 19 only total snaps. We could maybe start to make an argument here that it may be a little bit maybe about that sunk cost thing. Maybe a little bit of time here to look at getting some snaps to Barner instead of Fant. It just seems like every week when you ask Barner to do whatever you ask him to do, pass catching wise, he's a bit better of a blocker all the way around. You can see in Fant's grade, and this is a representation of what you get from him on basically an overall grade for the season, where struggles in run blocking, struggles in pass protection. And when you got to go so often to max protect, when you got to bring in extra blockers at times to help out, and you have a guy that can't really hold up on that, part of what makes our offense struggle. Jackson Smith and Jigba was well graded in this game. Was able to kind of pad his stats, a little bit at the end of the game. Gino well graded at 72.7. Not lighting the world on fire, but well graded. Lincoln has had a couple of pretty good performances overall in his grade from PFF. I don't know if many of you think the eye test matches up to that, but be that what it is. Anthony Bradford, we didn't touch on it at the top here, but is the truth going forward? It was announced today that Anthony Bradford is going to be your right guard going forward. We're going to get no more of the rotation. I know I have been a little bit of repeating on this one just a tiny bit, but as I said at the top about 4 or 5 weeks ago when many were clamoring for Christian Haynes, and I understood the clamoring, I did get it. He's a 3rd round pick. Why is he not out there? Why you have a 4th round pick instead of a 3rd round pick? It just doesn't logically make sense to people. But what I said at the time is that unfortunately you're going to get worse play from Christian Haynes, even as bad as you might think Bradford looks out there right now. And every game we go out there and we watch Haynes in this that he's played with Bradford in this rotation thing, that's how this is played out. He had a 12 pass blocking grade in this game, 50 run blocking grade. He was your worst graded defender in this game. So when they're going to Bradford here, he was pretty steady in this one overall, comparatively speaking. Haynes has still got some long-term upside here, just he isn't ready right now. That's kind of the bottom line on where it sort of sits with him. Charbonnet was okay out there. Ola Timi was in for 3 snaps, so don't take too much away from that. Bobo's had a little bit of a sophomore slump himself this year. Let me just call it on that. He didn't have 39 snaps in this game. Got a little bit more of a chance to have some impact in this one. Many of you were looking at him to do some things here with, as a guy maybe who has that long-term future to potentially slide into like a number 2-ish role. I don't know that he's necessarily jumped forward in that way this year so far like that. Laviska had a kind of a bad drop in this game. Wasn't able to do a lot with his impact. Connor Williams had a backward stepping game after having so many games forward here where he has been stepping forward and playing bit by bit by bit better and better and better. And Mike Jarrell is just a little bit in over his head right now. He's doing his best out there. He's fighting hard out there, but this is a 6th rounder that's second start. That more tape that these teams get on him, they're going to start to attack those things he's weak on, and probably expose him bit by bit more and more. George Fan can't come back fast enough, and hopefully, by God, Abraham Lucas at some point makes his way back into the mix here. Kobe Bryant is taking the most of these opportunities he's getting here at this free safety position. 76 total snaps, highest graded player in this game. Byron Murphy had some ups and down moments in this game on the All-22. There were moments he was getting pushed out of the hole. I think at times he's getting asked to play a little bit too much of a nose tackle role because of the necessity that we need for a nose tackle, because Hankins has gone into kind of the toilet as far as his level of play a little bit recently. And maybe he's just a little gassed out, too many snaps they threw on him for that few weeks period. But Hankins is giving you nothing, as you can see here from the grades on this one. So now you got to lean back on Byron Murphy as the one tech nose tackle. And there's just times where he's not always, I think, consistently at the NFL level going to hold up with the double team blocks. He could do that all the time at the college level, but I just don't know at the run game point of attack stuff where they're going at him with the double team combo block. It's a lot for a guy that's not necessarily into that 320, 330 size where that's at the necessarily forefront of his game. It's like he can do it, and he can do it even well at times. But I don't know that that's why you drafted him, was to be a nose tackle hold point for you. And they're kind of doing it because they want to keep, it feels like, more of Leonard Williams at the 3 tech. To me, and Leonard was solid in this game too. Mafe solid. Dotson did all right on that one. Ernest Jones had a little bit of that up and down day. Got a lot of tackles. Got stuck on some blocks. Got exposed at times in coverage. Kind of was what it was on that. Roy Robertson, after having some really good impact last week against the Falcons, kind of had a middling day a little bit on his side. Julian Love had some missed tackles across the board. Really not the best of performances from Julian Love that we've seen, and he's had some pretty solid ones throughout. And Why got the extension this offseason, but his plays dipped a little bit in the past couple of weeks as well. Derek Hall, probably his roughest game of the year, and not because of the play, not because of the incident, but because of the fact that he's just, I don't know, maybe a little, I know, chalk it up to too many snaps. 56 total snaps is probably a bit too much. You'd like to be getting this more down to the 40-ish zone, and he's probably having to run a bit too much because you can't trust some of the other guy edges out there. Hard to say on that one. Hard to say. Draymond Jones also 57.8. He's been not well graded this year overall off the edge. Draymond Jones. Kayvon Wallace, Drake Thomas, D. Williams, I guess, are well graded. I don't know how D. Williams, with even just one fumble, should make you into a negative 50 grade for a punt returner. That's just my take on it. I don't quite understand the special teams grades myself, so you take what you will from these. I don't get quite how they kind of put those together. Let's move on to another segment that's typically lighthearted, but this week we unfortunately have a couple of intense moments. It's a segment that was brought upon by the ESPN back in the day, and they don't do it as much anymore, but I always thought it was fun and funny, and just usually a way to kind of change things up here a little bit. A little segment that we call Come On Man. And we got a couple of moments in this game, unfortunately, to pick through for this Come On Man segment. You've got suspect number 1, Derek Hall, who decides he's going to give Josh Allen a little bit of extra loving after this play. I just wanted to give him a hug, man. That's all I just wanted to do. I don't know why the officials was like, dude, I'm just trying to hug him. I didn't know he was going to flop onto his back. I just wanted to give him a little huggy. And, of course, this is where you get a third down stop. Potentially field goal attempt in the driving rain. May or may not go through, but offense back into your hands. We get the whole incident between him and Jaron Reed that seems to have been cleaned up between those two, and they're on good terms and no lasting effects there. That's a candidate one, but I can't quite go with that one. I think I'm going to go with that one, but that's the heat of the moment. It is a bad moment there for Hall, but he's been a good player for you this year, and it is bad. You got to correct that. You can't do it, but unfortunately in a game like this, there's just too many moments. There's too many other ones that are even more egregious. Let's go to the Muff Man, because the Muff Man can not catch a punt. You've got one job. One mere job, young man. They punt the ball, you catch the ball. They punt the ball, you catch the ball. But something has happened to where D. Williams is unable to do the second part of that process, which is something because he has nothing to do with the first part of the process. I want this man on a jugs machine. I want Mike Macdonald to go to him in the morning and say, here's how we're doing this. And I'm going to get a yes or no answer for you on this next proposition I propose to you. We can A, cut you. Or B, I'm going to put you out on the jugs machine and you're going to catch 300 jugs a day outside. I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if it's wet. I don't care if the wind is a-blowing. You're going to get out on that field and you're catching 300. And I'm going to sit in my little office with my little security cam. And I want you catching 300 a day. What do you say here, D? Is that a yay or a nay? The streets or the jugs? But, alas, as bad as that one may be, it still doesn't quite capture the worst come on man moment of the day, which goes to our leader, our fearless one, our able general, Geno Smith, firing the ball off the top of the head of the defender as he double points back to him, right in front of the official who's staring at him the whole way. Even as you look at the official's face here, he's like, really, dude? Really? Really? Really, Gino? This gets you entirely nothing. It's, you got to scramble there. You get some yards back. You're trying desperately to claw your way back into this game. And a guy that has got to rise above everybody else who cannot get caught in the heat of the moment. As a quarterback, and people have questioned Geno Smith's leadership. And it's one that I have definitely supported because there's been times he has shown good leadership. But this flicking the ball off guys' helmets, you know, the kind of losing composure a bit times on the sideline and how he carries and holds himself as players are going to look to him. I mean, even in a moment where I see a DK frustrated on the sideline there and DK's just sitting there, maybe DK says, just don't come near me when I'm in that mode. But it's still a moment where you want your quarterback and receiver talking to each other, your quarterback going over there and just discussing it. It's not a great moment from Geno. Not a great moment from Geno. And so he's got to be a bit bigger than this, and he's got to be smarter than this in this moment. You can't fling a ball off a guy's helmet. The play was not even that bad. The guy didn't even bang him that egregiously out of bounds. He's just frustrated. He's had the ball snapped off of his head, over his head. He's had a center step on him. He's seen a screen pass get tipped for an interception that counts on his bottom line stats. I get it, but Geno Smith, come on, man. Got to be better, man. You just got to be better. It just can't go like that, unfortunately. All right, let's go to our next segment here. Every week, there's always some good play calls that you can usually find your way through, and I like to pick out the best one. Unfortunately, this week, there's no play calls because it was a tough week on the play call front, folks. Not an easy one, not at all, to find a good one. And I thought what stood out, and a couple people told me this as well, so it wasn't just to my eyes on this one, but you saw some real neutered drives from the Seahawks to start things out. The straight passes on the first drive, lack of running, lack of creativity that we've continued to see, lack of really much motion and moving parts and things that we thought we'd see from the Husky offense. What's part of what made the Husky offense stand out from a spread style conceptual system is the variety of ways they could attack you, is how unpredictable snap in and snap out they could be from where they would be trying to attack you on the football field. And you've lost a little bit of that feeling here as Grubb has made this transition here to the NFL level. But on that third drive, everything just locked in like a key going into the lock, and you were able to turn it. And I don't know what Grubb did on that one drive where everything just suddenly, you know, he was like he was realizing he was Neo in the Matrix and he could suddenly dodge bullets all of a sudden. But the play calling was exactly what you had seen from prior years in watching the Huskies play there with Grubb. And this one play call here is going to be exactly what I'm talking about within that. They're moving down the field. They've already used a lot of motion here in how they've rolled. And what I really want you to get caught up on here is they're going to do this is how you have the defense on this for the Bills, who on this day were able to see so many different things coming from a mile away. When you're going to run it, not only did they know you're going to run it, you saw their defenders taking 1, 2, 3 steps towards where the run play was going oftentimes. Well, here, you can already see before I start this clip, you've got the linebacker pointing, you've got other linebackers still moving, and this is just with the threat of Laviska Shenault going in motion from the top of your screen to the bottom of your screen. So let's play this a couple times, let you guys get a feel for this play a little bit. And then I want to come back to why I like it, even though this is just a short 12, 13-yard gain here that's not going to get you a lot. It's because this is the stuff you have to do in the NFL, I think, especially if you want to be a spread-based passing system. You can't just line it up, have the guys go run the routes with 4 different guys outside and say, go get it done. You've got to move some things around a little bit. You've got to give eye candy in different directions. So let's go back to the first bit of eye candy we get. You first get Laviska Shenault going in motion, and he's not going in motion prior to the snap and then coming to a standstill. He's going in motion where he's still moving post-snap, which is going to activate the defenders. And how you can tell this is watch the defenders, linebackers especially here, kind of roll with him a little bit. That outside linebacker there is keyed in on him. And then see even here, so the first line, let me go this way. The middle linebacker doesn't bite, but essentially, or since the Mike linebacker does bite, but the other linebacker essentially goes for the run fake. But you have sort of 2 fakes going here at once. So you have Laviska first going in motion to take the eyes of the defenders one way, and he certainly has this guy down here at the bottom of the screen completely bought into that fake. This defender's quasi kind of into what's going on with Laviska. You can see his eyes kind of there, and then this linebacker is totally keyed into Walker in the play fake here. So what you then get, as you can see, see that bounce forward there, but linebacker, look at me, false steps you get him to take. And where he's clearing out of that zone that eventually gets vacated for your tight end to run through. Because then he's scrambling back to get into position. But this whole play, this Buffalo Bill defense, in my opinion, was scrambling to get back into position because of all of the initial movement of Laviska, the play action then to Kenneth Walker. The Seahawks right now, I think, are something like 32nd in play action rate in the NFL and how often they really go to it. And when you combine that up with pre-snap motion and pre-snap motion that's actually moving at the snap, this is the type of stuff I thought we were going to get for Grubb. And then you end up with somebody, what? Wide open. Now, it's a little bit of a hesitancy by Barner because he's first setting up playing like he's going to be in pass protection here. This is also smart by Grubb because Grubb's taking advantage of what a team would do where teams are going, okay, they're going max protect so often because they can't trust their pass protection. So I, as a linebacker, now can drift more harder to the depth on my zone because that guy's not going to actually leak out of the backfield. He's there to help out that tackle. He's eliminated in the passing attack. So this is also Grubb smartly building in that a little bit of some adjustments where, okay, my tight end Barner sets up like he's going to pass protect against the tackle, but that's just kind of a feign, and we're going to come back to him leaking back out. But I love the pre-snap motion here. This was all over this drive. Beautiful play call by Grubb. Well done. Just a little play call. Just a little play call that just hit a little different.
This one hit different.
Just a little different. All right, let's go on and keep it moving here on to my girl Pumpkin here, laying next to me with her little leg flopped over the side. Boy, I was trying to get a prediction from her this week. She's getting increasingly harder on the prediction front, folks. She's distracted. She's unsure. She's torn like all of us, I got to tell you guys. So this one wasn't an easy one, but I'll try to give you some play-by-play on what went down this one because we got to get the Pumpkins picks. All right, let's see what our girl Pumpkin's got for us today, and it wasn't a pretty one. First, she starts out, your Seahawks are going to be on the right. Your dreaded Rams are on the left. She starts thinking Rams. She starts thinking Seahawks. And she goes, nope, I want to go around this corner and go check it out. There might be mice over there. She comes back. She sniffs again. Still unsure. Comes back towards the other direction. Are there mice in here? Comes back again now. Maybe she'll go and get a little love from the cameraman. How about a little bit of that? Still not going to the salmon. Still holding back until finally the dreaded choice is made. And she goes to the Rams. Our girl Pumpkin's selling on us. She's selling on us. But she took quite a lot of spinning and turning and twisting on that one to make a decision, but a decision she has done made, and I can do nothing to challenge it. It's the power of the ethereal feline and their psychic abilities. Who am I to question? Who am I to question? We would do the biggest hit of the week, but unfortunately in this game, your Seattle Seahawks decided to do no hitting. So there's not a hit to be really had on that one as I look through the tape. I saw a lot of patty caking. I saw a lot of business decision making. More business decisions being made in that than you'd see in a bank in a week. Didn't see a lot of hitting. Keep it on moving on to the next segment here where we got to take a look at the enemy. Hey, it's a tight division. Everyone seems like right now we're about 4-4. Everyone has got the fighting chance to take this thing. Nobody's taking the bull by the horns. So let's take a little look and see what's happening right now, tracking the NFC West. Lady Luck, she's a fickle bitch. Unfortunately, all three teams this past week were able to go out there and get themselves a victory in this NFC West. Unfortunately, leading with your Rams on Thursday Night Football, a game that saw two touchdowns scored and 4 successive possessions by the two teams to begin the game. The Rams were able to hold up the rushing attack by the Vikings and get that more brought down to a standstill. Sam Darnold had one of his malfunction moments on a football field when the Vikings were able to really start to threaten there near the end. And the Rams got themselves back. Puka, especially in this game, had a really big game for them. 7 catches, 106 yards, but also Cooper Kupp's influence coming back into play was also really beneficial for them. Their linemen are getting healthy. They're getting healthier at the right time of the year. They've won, I think, 3 of their last 5, 2 in a row. So 4 touchdown passes for Stafford. They're getting hot and less injured at exactly the worst time for your Seattle Seahawks. The Vikings seem to be coming a little bit more further down to earth. They lost their star left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, which will factor in maybe a little bit more for when we're going to be playing them in a couple of weeks, as that's a really talented player for them out there at the left tackle spot. Speaking about that Cardinals team, and what you'll notice with this Cardinal team is absent one fumble that was recovered back by Kyler Murray. No interceptions from Kyler Murray in this game. On the year, he's got 3. 3. Go over here to the team stats and show you guys this. Something that shows up when I look at the Cardinals every single week is that they're not going to beat themselves. And you'll see that on penalties. It's a penalty here. 4 for 29. It's kind of like that for them almost every week. They keep the time of possession even. They're on the road in this game against a Miami team getting back Tua. And Tua and them were back to the offensive normal kind of selves, and they were sort of rolling along pretty good, pretty decently for the most part. Cardinals, like the Rams, found some adjustments they were able to make. Just hang in there, just like what they do, which is just kind of hang around, be strong, just fight your butt off. And that defense, they fly around to the football. Again, they don't shoot themselves in the foot. They don't make these mistakes that are just self-inflicted. And the Cardinals came down to the end of the wire, and like we saw last week, because they had a fourth down drive to basically win it. They did it again this week. Go down there, eat up the rest of the clock, get a last-minute kick, get the win, get themselves in first place. They deserve to be in this position, because when you do look at the Cardinals, that stands out, I'll show this to you right now, is that their schedule has not been easy. Buffalo Bills, Rams, Lions, Commanders, 49ers, Packers, Chargers, and now the Dolphins is the easiest matchup they've had here into Week 8. That's a team that if you're looking for what they're doing, going to go forward into this season, and now getting Darius Robinson, their first-round pick back, that's a team that has been very impressive to get. I've been not a big guy on Gannon. I didn't think that it was going to be a hire that worked, but look at what they did there, folks, in these games. I mean, they hung in there step for step with the Lions, 20-13 in that game. And okay, you lose the Commanders with a boat ratio, but Commanders are a good team this year right now. 34-28, you hung into the Bills on the road. You just beat this Dolphins team 10 a.m. on the road in Miami. I don't like saying it, but Cardinals are a good team. Good team. Win or lose, they lose and win as a team. They collectively kind of work together in what they're doing. And you were starting to feel that from them even last year in the first year of Gannon. And that stood out, and one reason I think a lot of people were so high on them, despite the fact that they were only coming off of 4 wins last year, was that you were feeling that incremental improvement in the first year of the head coach. It wasn't in the wins and losses as the bottom line, but the spirit was shifting from where it had been, so to speak, if you will. The last one was the damn 49ers just never will go away. They're coming back into it again this year, much like the Rams, maybe getting healthier a little bit at the right time of year. Yes, Ayuk is out for the season, but Christian McCaffrey may be coming around the mountain. Dre Greenlaw may be coming around the mountain. And they got a little bit of decent play out of Ricky Pearsall fitting in there. He didn't do anything magical in this game, but I think that they like a little bit of what they got out of him. 4 catches, 38 yards in this game. Guerrero, they just always are able to find their certain archetype of running back. Guerrero was that guy. I talked about this in the draft when they took him, is that this is just right along the same lines of the guys like a Raheem Mostert or like a Matt Breida, where he's not that kind of player exactly in the model type, but just in really fast and explosive cat. Maybe doesn't have a lot of runs, moves in the open field. Maybe he's not going to bust and break a whole lot of tackles, but you give him any kind of crack of daylight, he'll maximize it to the utmost. Has a really solid game filling in for their backup there in Jordan Mason, and Brock Purdy was just steady as hell in the game, and 18-26, 260 yards. 49ers able to get the victory, go to 4-4 in the year, and this whole division has tightened on up all the way down, but that is the tracking of the NFC. Well, there wasn't a lot of guys that I would say this last week we could call underrated heroes. Few and far between, I would say, at that. My man Job got his first pick at a very timely point in this football game and was able to take that pick far. I think he had a little bit of more of a downward game overall than his past week against the Falcons, but still a guy that I'm kind of interested in as we go into the future with him, because he's been a player, and as Trey Brown comes back, I think it's good to hear Macdonald say that he'll be in a competition there with Job, because I don't know if Trey's played necessarily particularly great this year, and he continues to play solid. But the guy that I want to highlight today is a guy we probably don't talk about enough for as great a start to the career as he's had, and a guy that has, I don't know if there's a trajectory to be had for a punter to be on course for a Hall of Fame career anymore. I don't know if it's even possible, but Dixon, 4 punts in this game, 245 yards. He averaged over 61.3 yards per kick. 61.3 yards per kick in this football game with a 68 long. And that's not him kicking it and it's like the punt returner let it roll in front of him. Let me show you what I mean on this. We don't get enough punter highlights here, okay? Let it not be said I don't show Dixon some love. I almost said that completely wrong. But here on this one, look at this, man. The guy gets just about taken out. I think he got a 61er off on this one. I mean, he's getting blasted. Almost sells the flag and gets a 61-yard punt off. Tell me that's not impressive. Tell me that's not next level. Oh, you get a 61-yarder off, but you ain't getting a 61-yarder off, and you sell the theatrics of the collision. I think he was in a car crash after this one, but a hell of a punt right there. That's from about the 20-yard line. You're punting that off to the 10. Not too shabby. How about this one? Again, from his own 20. It's where he punts that. That ball lands at the 2. And the punter's so thrown off. He punts this thing so far. The punter had no expectation he was going to moon blast this so far that he ends up just going and returning a ball that he should have just let go back into the end zone, because he's probably freaking out. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's what he's probably saying right there. Whoa, 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 whoa. But Dixon, as he has all year this year, did his part to flip the field position game, help the other phases of the football team. And from day one, this guy has done his job as a 4th-round pick. And if you look through any metrics you want to use, and there's not a lot to be used for punters, net, gross, hang time, inside the 20. But if you want to look from historical markers with Dixon versus NFL historical markers of other punters, he's ranked right up there in almost every one of those metrics that counts. And so I don't know if he can be. I don't know if it's possible with Dixon, but just celebrate the fact that in a team that doesn't have a lot going well for it on either side of the ball necessarily, especially cohesively, he's the one guy at least is doing his part to help this team out in every way. Alrighty. All right, let's get over to you guys here. I think I've talked enough today. I'd like to see where the pulse of the fan base is right now and see where we kind of sit. Where do you stand on my buy or sell? Are you pro buy, you pro sell, or you just stand pat? I'd love to hear from you either here in the chat or down in the comment section. I'm not pushing necessarily 100% one way or the other. It's just that I will be asked if you can understand where I stand on this, and I've given a lot of thought in looking at this team and going back and watching all 22 of this game, and considering what I've seen in recent weeks when going back and watching the tape on this, and that is it isn't any one player's fault. There's a variety of players that come into play here, and it's almost kind of like at times as you watch the tape, everyone's sort of taking their turn for it to be their major problem on the play that they F up to cause the play to go wrong, both offensively and defensively. But it may be the stake to go. This Rams team has given us fits here for years, much like that 49ers team. It's going to be very interesting to see if they can call upon some of the resilience here it'll take to come out and win this football game, especially understanding that, you know, you can't lean back on things like you used to and said, well, we got the home field advantage. You know, I really can't undersell this enough at this point that is gone. That is really gone. 15-15 over the last 30 games. You have your quarterback talking about it in the post-game presser that it felt like you were at an away game at home. I've never in my life heard a player talk about that about a Seahawks stadium, whether you're in Husky Stadium or you're in the Kingdome. It was it hurt to hear. I'm glad Gino said it. I'm glad he said it. I think it's the truth and what it aligns to what we know about truth and what it aligns to what we saw in that stadium and what we've seen in that stadium from opposition fans. I know there are reasons. I know they don't put a good product. If you're going to charge me $400 a ticket, you can't expect me to watch crap. These are the things I hear. I get it. But it still doesn't make it any less painful to watch or see out there or play out. And it's unfortunately now kind of a feather that we have taken out of our cap. You know, put that feather in your cap, that feather comes out your cap. All right, let's see where you guys are at. I've blabbed enough. Hope everyone's having a good night. If you can, for me, please do hit that like button. Maybe sub on up if you can. We are on the road here to 20,000 subscribers. And I think I'm going to do a little deal, by the way, as we get down to the stretch, as we get to about 19,500 subscribers and we're getting real close to that mark. I think we're going to end up doing like a 24-hour stream, kind of it'll be right about the time the season rolls down. And it'll be a charity stream, I think. So I've been playing around with this notion a little bit, and I think we will be doing that. We got to get a little closer. We're looking down we're getting closer and closer out to 18,000 subscribers, so we'll get there quick. But all the more reason to sub on up and help us get there that much faster for the children. For the children. That's what I say. Sanchez, thank you for starting us off real nicely with this. Sorry, a little slow to acknowledge, but I appreciate the donation of $10. I hope you're having a great night, brother. Mikey needs to get us one win against the Rams 49ers. Literally what he was brought in to do. If he doesn't deliver, my patience wears thin. I think that's fair. I think it is fair that's at the end of the day, you're looking for him to start to find a solution to these things that have dominated us. We haven't won against the Niners in like 4 years, and that's having like an extra playoff game on the books as an attempt. So to your point, you've been dominated by these guys. I understand the patience and being thin in the fan base and where it exists and in the different ways it exists. I'm tired of watching the bad team. I'm tired of watching mediocre. I'm tired of, I can completely get that. I think what's going to make it hard for this to happen at this point, Sanchez, is number one, those teams are getting healthier and they look better than you do this season. The other part that's going to hurt this is that he's brought in to do this, by implementing in his scheme. And that when you get the nuances of his scheme, you can then challenge these teams and you can start to neutralize what they do. But if you have to simplify things, if you have to streamline things, then that's going to, in my opinion, I could be wrong in my logic. I'll see what you think on this, Sanchez, but I think that's going to hinder their ability to then be able to hold those teams back for how good they are. We've learned over the last couple of years that a simple plan of attack against the Los Angeles Rams and Sean McVay, a simple plan of attack against Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers will not get the job done. That it has to be more than just you've got good talent. You've got to bring kind of the schematics with it. You've got to be playing chess with them. And if you're playing checkers and they're playing chess, good night, Charlie. And it's not to say this can't get implemented down the road. It's just as I start on and lead with at the top of the show, Sanchez, it just feels like maybe you're not able to get this implemented with the players you have in house, and that's not necessarily again an exact That's not me casting aspersions on their talent. It's just that you look for different skill sets of different type of players prior under Coach Carroll, and that you were running a defense with a certain level of complexity that look for those kind of players that weren't necessarily going to be asked to do the things Macdonald's going to be asking him to do here. And it becomes a little bit about that as much as anything. And that's understandable, I guess, on that front. So I'd like to see it, Sanchez. Don't get me wrong, but I have a hard time seeing it necessarily right now. We didn't look close to the Niners a couple weeks ago at home. We didn't look like maybe we were just tired. We might have just been sleepy. But you're getting everyone ready for the S show Tuesday. Devian, I saw this on X. There was a comment under that showed the abundance of young QBs that are doing well, though. There's definitely success stories that you can find in there, DVN. That is for sure. And I think when you're looking at the success stories that you can kind of supply, there's different reasons for why they're successful. You can go definitely, you'd do like a Jaden Daniels would be one guy you'd say, okay, that's definitely there. Brock Purdy would be a guy you'd put in there, right? Caleb Williams is doing reasonably well. On that one, I think that's fair enough. Bo Nix is starting to find his footing out there in Denver. We've got CJ Stroud. That kind of feels about it to me. So, is there a list of 5 guys there that you could grab and say are young guys that are kind of just initially in their young parts of their career working there on that side of it that are, that's valid DVN for sure. But I also think that when we talk about this discussion, oftentimes as it's presented to me, it gets pushed into me as sort of this no doubt about it. You draft a guy and that's all it is it's the need, the intention of need to do it, the intention of want to do it, the intention of will to do it is all it really takes. And if you take care of that part, you got your QB and you're set. And I think even in the success stories that we look around right now of that list that you talk about, which again, is completely valid, Commanders have an okay supporting cast there. He's kind of getting it done. Jaden Daniels kind of doing a little bit of that, he's just so good thing. Nix went to the perfect spot with the perfect coach, has a great offensive line in front of him. We know that that's a supporting kind of cast thing that can help a young quarterback out tremendously. CJ Stroud, I think, has gotten similar. Laramie Tunsil, left tackle, pretty solid offensive line, I think, overall there and what they have. The other guy I was looking at there was Brock Purdy. No doubt about that. He's had the supporting cast there, as well. And that's where we come back to what we try to draw and get, I think, to the ultimate truth of this DVN is like, okay, you want to draft the quarterback, good, but get that supporting cast structure first in place. Get the coaching in place. Don't still be searching for that stuff and unsure on that part of it. Get that part handled and then go, make that move. And then you got a lot more chance for success. Haley says Richardson has so much upside, but damn, the downside is massive. It's real. It's real. I will say that the tape isn't as bad as the final stats look on his accuracy. He's got some drops. He's got some receivers with some, he's got some dick finger receivers. Let's call it what it is. Some of those drops, like, you got to haul that stuff in, but you're making your quarterback look not great. The really what needed to happen here is that you needed Richardson probably another year in college. The problem is the NFL is so fascinated with these talents that they'll still draft him top 5 even if they're not ready and need more seasoning. And so he needs more seasoning. He gets to the pro level. And then you go, well, he needs more seasoning. We can't sit him on the bench and have him sit and learn. He needs more seasoning. You're going to get him seasoning while he's still trying to learn and understand the position. And then you compound that by trying to maximize what you can get out of him from the position by building in all of those read option RPO concepts that have him running with the ball way more than he should. And I've lamented this from day one with Anthony Richardson, from day one. So I've been very consistent on this and I'll remain consistent on it. This is the path where we go, where guys succeed, guys fail, and they may or may not be good or bad, but organizations fail these players too. And they don't get enough heat on it as much as the players do for being called busts. And Anthony might not be good, but the Colts and their process and their approach to this one, as I would offer, has been as equally asinine and stupid as the Andrew Luck situation. That was different, where you didn't give Luck quite the offensive line you've given Richardson, but it was this is as equally dumb, in that you can see the train coming down these tracks, you're standing on the tracks and you can get off of it, but instead that pull to want to get him to be good and get him to be good fast and maximize that rookie contract and it ends up leading you down a pathway to making bad decisions. And now, you have the Colts in their mind questioning a little bit about their approach and what they do. And, now he's got question. You can't just go sit him now and say, okay, you go sit and you learn now. Well, now there's damage kind of done, isn't there? And that's why you got to be careful. It's more about being careful. And about I'm with going and getting the quarterback of the future, but just be careful. Be very careful in how you approach it. Be interesting to see how that goes there with Richardson going forward, though. Seahawks Supersonic Boom Shakalaka. Love that Sonic shirt, by the way. I have been having so much fun. 2K's got the eras mode right now. I'll probably stream this over on Twitch, by the way, folks. Might even be over there maybe tonight. But they've got the eras mode in this NBA 2K game. And you may not be into video games, but for you guys that are Sonic fans, this is really cool. You can go and select the 90s era. And so I'm in there. I'm playing as the Sonics. I'm in Key Arena. Got, Cam Payton, but then I got all the folks. Got Deadlift, got Sam Perkins, Big Smooth, and it's awesome playing. Like the movements all look good and right and true, and man, it's a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun going back and playing the old school Sonics. Devian says, what Brennan says was that he doesn't want to go into complexity of you are so mediocre at the basic assignment, build a foundation first. Which is crazy because he is. But yeah, that's true. Yeah. Please do hit that like button, folks, if you could for me. Thanks for reminding me of that. Boom shakalaka. Brady, that reinforced my belief that most personnel aren't absorbing the concepts in either scheme. That's my feeling of it as well, Brian. Whether it's talent or not, there's a lack of absorption. They're absorbing like leather right now. Jordan, it all starts up front. If the linebackers, D-line aren't getting their assignment right, you can't really do much. True. And that's where we are still kind of at the basics of things. Haley, if we consider that our D-line doesn't fit the scheme and Baker didn't give an F, I wonder if Jones' acquisition will help things a lot. I think he'll definitely improve things. I think there's a long way for the unit to go with Jones coming in here, and it's hard to ask him to be a miracle worker per se, and that his arrival will clean all of these things up. It's one word that will help, and you've, I think, felt some of his more willingness to stick his nose in there and be a real sure tackler even this last week, and that's why his tackle numbers were so high versus what we've kind of seen from the position, I think, collectively going here recently. I think you got not a long way to go, but you got a ways to go. And it's just going to require more kind of fluctuating through and spun out, I think, a bit here. Brian E. says, I sort of anticipated that the light would come around week 10, but if they're not absorbing the concepts in practice, they're not going to do it on the field in an actual game. It's true. And that's that lack of progress that's getting stymied here that I think, for me, beyond the results, is a little bit of a small frustration and saying, okay, this isn't progress. This is more of we're feeling a bit stuck. Okay, then my mind goes to say, then why are we stuck? What is it that's then holding the team back at that point? What is these inhibiting factors here? Is it just that the process is going to take a slow part from Macdonald's standpoint to get these guys up to speed? And he's like, well, just week 15, it'll be there. We thought week 10, but it's week 15. Or is it, like I worry a little on it, that it's more a matter of maybe not the right guys all the way down the line. Like, we got some good guys. We got some foundations in here. We got definitely a lot that we can work with. But there's enough that we can't work with that holds back the greater whole. And that's the part I don't know for sure of, but I raise the flag of wonderment. That's all I do on this one. Space in the house. How you doing, man? Joe, how you doing? It's good to see you too. Says, hope you're all having a great evening. Tough loss to Buffalo, but I'm actually still cautiously optimistic for the long term. We shall see. I love the optimism. Let's go. CR says, hello from Germany. What's up, CR? What's up? What's up? It's he says it's as simple. We effed up big and got a reality check. This was the reason I was so mad when we gave up on B-Wags. Stopping the run at leadership is what we need now. Yeah, I was not a big fan of letting go of Bobby either. I thought that the coverage liabilities were a little bit overstated. I thought that his fit to the Macdonald defense was actually maybe not pure, but that there were things that Macdonald could work with him in this defense. And they instead decided to go a different route with it, But your run defense has taken a big step backwards this year, and that's saying something because it has actually been a strength in recent years, not because of Bobby last year. He was doing his part in the run game, but because of some of these same issues we see this year. Lack of sometimes effort, just one guy almost every play kind of messing something up. But Bobby was always consistent in that part of his game. You can say what you will in him as far as coverage goes, but as a run defender, he was always legit. Joe Smith says sunk cost equals fallacy in logic, common in economics. Don't keep putting chips into the pot just because you've already put a lot in. Hard psychologically, but logically sound. That's right. I think it's a very, I brought up a lot on this channel at times, and I think it's something that you have to be aware of. It's also a hard line that's also know where you're on one line or the other, right? When is the player just this close to getting it versus he isn't going to ever get it? And when I watch this team right now, I'm left thinking about a Bill Parcells quote that I can never quite, let me look up the quote so I can say it right. And, when you're young. All right, I got it. So the NFL, you used to have Sports Illustrated back in the day as a kid. That was your magazine. This is before, folks, we didn't have internet, okay? So you had to get by on things. So you guys got the Sports Illustrated magazine, and then you'd always get with it the VHS tape for every year of subscription. And the VHS tape was hard hits and player profiles. And it was great. NFL films, awesome work, always great stuff. I highly recommend going back and looking up those videos from the 80s and even early 90s, as they've got a spirit to them. They've got a good production value to them. But on it, in one of them, they were talking to Bill Parcells, who was the coach of the Giants at the time, Super Bowl winner. And they were going to him, asking him a little bit about, young players and when to know, young players are going or not going, or when they're going to make it happen or not make it happen. And he had a great quote in it that's always stuck with me, and I've heard it often referenced. And when he said about discussing the evaluation of young players, he once famously said, if they don't bite when they're puppies, they usually won't bite. And when I watch this team right now, I sometimes sit there and wonder, with the team that's very young right now in this sport, if I'm not watching some young puppies that aren't going to ever bite. I don't know for sure. Again, you have to be behind the scenes. I'd have to see work ethic. I don't know for sure. I'll trust in the coaching staff. I'll trust in the front office to know what is the right path on this. But by the product of what I see on the field, I wonder if we got a lot of puppies that aren't biting. Because I think Bill had a point on that one. You got that dog in you, or you don't. You're here to just do a job, or you got a passion and love for the sport, or a passion and love for the violence, or a passion and love for that action, or you don't. And you can't fake it. And it's the part that stands out that I wonder more than anything else. And that's not about losing hope in the team or not having optimism or not celebrating them if they can turn this around. I will be right at the forefront of it. But it is just what I wonder as we're here in this moment, leading to this very, very important game against the Rams, where we then have to make a very important decision following it. Just food for thought. Jeffrey A. Thistle, thank you for the $10 donation. I know we have the benefit of hindsight, but if you could go back 2 drafts and Anthony Richardson is available, would you take him over Spoon? He's played bad for the Colts, but not given time to develop. I certainly think it's very premature at this point for a very young player like Anthony Richardson to make any ultimate determinations about him. This is part of the problem with the quarterback position is they'll look at, we'll see NFL franchises like ours look at every other position and not apply that puppy not biting thing, and then apply that to the quarterback position is where you shouldn't probably apply it, because that's a much more tougher position to master and get good at, especially if you're coming from college with a little bit of very small amount of starting experience. I mean, what did Richardson have? 13 starts at the college level coming out. He is a very talented player, Jeffrey. At the time, if we're picking at 5, I think I said at the time, so let me be consistent in that I probably would have taken him. Because I did not want to trade up. That's what everybody's advocated for me in recent years, and saying, you know, we're at 5. Let's go flip a future first round pick and this year's first round pick to get up to 3 so we can go get Richardson. I can't do that. But if he landed in our lap at 5 and we didn't have to do any acrobatics to have such a really, really great talent like that in-house, then I certainly would have been much more. Yeah, I would have done it. I would have done it at the time, and I still would have done it even, you know, now. I would say this, Jeffrey, if I knew that the plan would be then to start him instantaneously, the answer would be a hell to the no. You had to have at least sat him for a year, and maybe 2. And I know that's hard for teams to do, and go, but the value, I understand. Every individual player is different. Some guys are more advanced than others. Some guys need more time. The rub with Anthony Richardson was super young coming out, 13 starts at the college level. I don't believe in he doesn't have seasoning in college, so let's get him the seasoning in the pros thing. That's not the way that works. You get him the seasoning in college because he's not got the best athletes in the world chasing him around as he's trying to process things mentally. You know, he can be the best athlete on the field and figure it out. That's why the starts should come at the college level. That's why really from Anthony's position on this is he should have gone back to college another year. And that's why you're going to start to see these quarterbacks, quite frankly, start to make these decisions to do this. Luckily, the NIL is sort of pushing them over the line to do it more and more often, but they benefit from it. They need that kind of work. And absent that, I know it sort of goes inverse and it doesn't make sense, and you guys might disagree with me on this, but absent that, then I think you got to have the guy sit for 2 years. He's got to be more in now the Aaron Rodgers. Not that Aaron necessarily needed his amount of 3 years, but you need to be more in he's really young. He needs a lot of time, but the talent is unmistakable. The upside is insane, but you have to be patient, and nobody wants to be patient there, Jeffrey. That is the rub with that one. But yeah, I'd do it. Great question, but I would have done it. Thomas Cox, thank you for the $5 donation. It's good to see you in the house, Thomas. Hope you're having a great night, brother. He says, we got to understand that when Macdonald was hired, plus his staff was hired, around the time the combine came, you can tell they are behind the 8 ball. Yep, a little bit of a scramble process going on here. And that's where patience will be the thing, as I said, the start of the season, and still maintain now above all else. We've got to be patient. And there are a lot in the fan base that are trying to get to draw those points of conclusion. You know, the only conclusions I draw today that I'm pushing for, just because of the trade deadline, making you have to sort of make your bed with making a choice one way or the other. And I don't want to lose the opportunity to maximize for the future if the time is not now. And I don't know whether it is or not. The coaching staff has to make that determination a little bit. Schneider has to especially make that determination. But certainly patience is going to be required here. And we've got to give Mike an opportunity not only to have the time, to your point, Thomas, but to also have the exact players that are going to fit to what he does. Otherwise, we're not giving him that kind of same sort of fair shake that I'm talking about in equivalency to the quarterback position. So great point, Thomas. Great point. Jeffrey, thanks for another $5 donation. He says, Anthony Richardson was very raw coming out. He needed to sit behind a vet and learn, but he was thrown in day one, and they can run him like Cam. Yeah, the whole... So it's so on point, Jeffrey. It's so like absolutely accurate in that everybody was trying to go to this comp of Cam Newton, which I just effing hated, because the kid had more throwing upside than Cam Newton did. He showed more of an ability at times to have built-in processing than Cam did on the field, especially ever at Auburn. but he just didn't do it consistently or have enough of an opportunity to do it. And they wanted to railroad him into that cam road. And the reason it makes me mad is I just feel like that then is what parts of what drives the Colts then to turn him into RPO guy. And the guy has a hip injury and he walks off the field and he walks back on the field. And the first play call you go to is another read option. After last year, he gets his shoulder injury running what? Read option? That right there should be a big warning sign to that organization. Hey, we're leaning into this play calling because we're trying to get productivity out of him. Well, maybe that's the warning sign that he's not ready to play. No. We got to get our most out of this. He's top 4 pick. He's got to validate this pick for us. So it becomes about validating the pick and not what's best for the player's future. And that's that draw, man. And that's what I think does allow these quarterbacks to fail a lot. And yeah, he was raw. He was going to need time. But that doesn't mean that the upside still isn't there. And that doesn't mean that once you give him that time that he can't, tap into that upside thing. So, yeah, people are breaking him down pretty hard for the whole walking off the field, tapping out, catching his breath thing. But that one doesn't strike me as bad as just, the Colts should be getting much more heat for their approach here than that whole play. Like they haven't had 1% talked about how much they messed that situation up there for Anthony as much as people have talked about him taking a blow on the sideline, which to me, we're talking about the wrong things if we're talking about that. But thank you, Jeffrey, for the double dip donation. I do appreciate you for that. Seahawks boom shakalaka. I believe B-Wags addressed that he didn't fit the new defense and that's why he left, but his leadership is direly missed. Yeah, I don't know if he was a pure fit for what the defense wanted. I certainly think considering where the play of the position's been at and what the alternative was going to be, you might make the argument of, yeah, it wouldn't have been perfect, but it would have been better. But I think it's a fair point. Chris says, I wish the Giants didn't care about keeping Dexter. Yeah, they're not letting him go. Sean Thompson says, Brandon and the Great Pumpkin, happy Halloween. Well, thank you, Sean. Have a great Halloween as well. Pumpkin is in her pumpkin. She's shaping herself like a pumpkin right now for the stream. Haley does suck that for 2 years in a row. We've seen Nwosu inactive more than active, though. That's a lot of money for not a lot of play time. And it's not all his fault for sure, Haley. I mean, dirty hit the start of the year, but it is the reality that you're going to get to the end of this year and there's going to be a collection of guys that you're going to move off of that beyond whether they fit or not, you're not getting the bang for the buck on the money being spent. And it's unfortunate for Nwosu, but it's probably the pathway the team's going to take at this point. Chad Hart, we need some good luck, Brando. It's time for the black cat to show up. I'm going to try to get another cat tree here for the background, and we'll see if the orange one will let her go up into the tree behind us. I was thinking of putting her kind of next to the Largent shirt maybe over there, if we can pull that off. But I'll try, man. She's not been super lucky for us in the past when I brought her on stream, so. Always hand grenade. Why is the PFF segment a stealth bomber? No other reason I thought it looked cool. Sometimes I just do things that I think look cool. And a lot of times when I'm doing that stuff in the middle of the night, hand grenade, it's 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm just making myself laugh. Yeah, I think Barner needs more snaps too, Chris. And Vance, another one of those guys you're probably likely to move on from after this year. You're going to save a lot of money by doing so. And hard to justify what he's making right now for the very small amount of impact he's bringing. We got a big problem when you talk about why we are so drawn to running up in the middle. We've got so many issues with blocking to the edges right now. The receivers aren't getting it done, including DK Metcalf for the most part. And Fant's not getting it done. It's one too many guys. And it causes the whole kind of run game to then sort of fail on up. When you want to run it to the edges, that at least. We got plenty of failures on the line too there. Chad Hart says, hell yes, go Seahawks fans since the Chuck Knox era, 1985, not even from Seattle on Phoenix. Oh, let's go. BP says, new week to go, 1-0. Go Hawks. Go Hawks, BP. Just get that one win at a time, man. And then, hey, to your point, to the point of true optimism here, and not empty, but true optimism, is that this is 4-4. You got a lot of divisional matchups on the slate of games. You got 5 divisional matchups remaining. This season is still well within the hands of this team to be able to go out there, as bad as these embarrassing losses have been recently, that you can take control and hold of this season. You can go out there and go make some noise. It still isn't entirely possible, and we know the talent here is true. Got a lot to clean up, but definitely that's true. And yeah, Haley, Kobe Bryant's been holding down the line really well for Rayshon Jenkins. Maybe make a bit of an argument here that maybe he's been a bit of an improvement over what we were getting out of him. Kirk, it's time to let the young guys play. Trade away any players that aren't in the 3-year plan and get ready for the next offseason. If the team takes that approach, Kirk, I'm perfectly fine with it, and I will support it. Not because I'm freaking out or I'm emotional, but this is what you would do under a new coaching regime. And I haven't seen enough signs of life right now that would give me confidence to believe that you feel like this team is this close away from rounding that bend. Still just looks like it's a little bit in the distance. And if it's a little bit in the distance, there's no reason to maximize for today, maximize for tomorrow. So I'm good either way they want to go with it, but I certainly see the thought process around going in that direction you're advocating for. Patrick says, based on what Mike said on the Sports Seattle channel, it seems more of a talent group thing or something along that nature. Kind of, yeah. I mean, it's sort of just, it's whether it's talent or not the right fit of guys, that what it sort of boils down to is you don't have really the ability to dial up a solution here that's going to fit because they can't make it go. And that's why you got to now simplify things back down a bit. I could be making a bit of a leap of logic on that, but that's just sort of the way I read it too as well. BP says this makes real conversation as far as being a fan of Washington sports teams. It feels it's no investment in our sports. Mariners, Hawks, Huskies, WSU. Why is it taking 20 years to get an NBA team? On the NBA team front, I don't really know. I will say that if you look across sports franchises right now on all leagues, maybe with the exception of like hockey, they seem to kick out 2 new expansions every 4 years, but no sports teams are really adding new franchises right now. I think that's a bit of a part of it. But it's a real tough time to be a Washington sports fan a little bit too, especially with no Sonics around and Mariners in the shape they are. I think that the Seahawks are doing a lot more than the Mariners ownership is doing, at least at that level of things, to try to build a winner. But it's frustrating. Ornacity, I believe in Macdonald. Trust his process. Once we get some of the guys he wants, I think it'll help his concepts more. Me as well. I still do trust in Macdonald as a head coach here to be the right guy. I don't think that he was a bad hire. I think it just makes sense that you just don't quite have the right guys, without really trying to get to a place of, people want to take the next step off that Ornacity sometimes, being like, well, we didn't do draft well, so we got to fire this guy now. Or we this needs that. I just go to make it what you want, the next few steps you want from that, but just that the guys in house right now are not. He does not have enough of a collection of those guys to make this work that, maybe he's trying to make this massaged with guys that are more fitted to better, or not better, but other schemes, better fitted to other schemes. Haley says, BA, biggest issue I have is similar to the issue I had with Pete. Every week with Pete, we got to get at it. We got to get better. With Mac, we got out coached. We got some stuff to clean up. Yeah, I think I think what happens a little bit, and it happened to Carroll too as well, is that you get to a place on some of these guys where you've hammered the same message over and over again, and you've told the audience over and over again what the message is, and you keep getting asked kind of the same question, and they're looking for some different answer, and there's not a different answer to really be had. And what it comes down to is that it's just not clicking with the players. And it didn't click before with Carroll and the players. You've inherited Carroll's players. This is where, again, it's not even, people get touchy about this with me, like trying to throw shade to Carroll, which is not what I'm trying to really do. It's just that this is also a bit of what you've had to where the culture was at prior to Carroll coming along. the lack of accountability, the lack of things being driven in a way that made you feel like these guys were really having their feet held to the fire has just not been in place recently. And when you don't have accountability, you get a little bit of, I think, what we see on the football field. And I think Mac's going to drive a little bit more towards accountability than we saw in the prior. And I think that that's going to be done by and large by moving off of guys, where I think as before times, Haley, we would have guys that we would fall in love with and stay with and hold on to with and keep, and it goes, well, it's not getting the job done. Let's not get sentimental here. We just got to move on and get on to what's going to work and what's going to be right. Yeah, this is my main issue with quarterback development is look at Cousins, Geno, Darnold, Goff, and Mayfield. There's as many reclamation projects lighting up as there are quarterbacks that have been given up on. It's back to that, who's the failure point here? You know, are these quarterbacks coming in and they're just so crappy and they're just getting overvalued? Or is it that NFL franchises don't have a very good process in place because they're affixed to the point in their mind that these quarterbacks float on high and that they should be able to come into their broken franchise or their quasi-broken franchise and walk in the doors and somehow make everybody rise above, as opposed to let's help him make him rise above. You know, it's a point of emphasis, and it's one reason I've so often pushed back to saying, let's go back to the blueprint we utilized 10 years ago to get to a Super Bowl. I know everybody wants the magical quarterback that you got to package 3 first-round picks and you go up at number 2 and you go grab that guy. But what if we could build the supporting cast around a guy that was a 2nd or 3rd round pick, that had played a lot of college football, had a lot of starts, came to the pro level a little bit a la like a Bo Nix, and was ready to go. You're not going to get as talented guy like that. You know, he's a 1st-round pick, but, you know, look to target a guy like that. Maybe he's got a flaw or two, but what he does good, you can really work with, and you can build such a strong team around him because he is so cheap that's your pathway to trying to get maybe back to the show. I love it as an ideal. And maybe it's not the only approach we have to take here, but it's one that I think that you could go back down, especially considering you have the same general manager in place you once did before, to create those same conditions. But yeah, Haley, there's a process towards the quarterbacks in the NFL right now that, as much as these guys are experts, supposedly, these front offices and these coaches, as much as they're supposed to know what this and know that, I think they're also driven by their job more often than not. And that what I'm saying here isn't anything brilliant under the sun. You know, the having a quarterback weighed and sitting him is is for the best of him. Though I will argue there are people that are even professionals that'll say, no, you just got to throw him out there. So there are some that are just stupid in their approach with this. But I think that it's also the pull from the general managers and coaches that they're always on the precipice of being fired. And you know, I'm going to have this guy sit for 2 years. My team's going to be crappy. I'm going to get fired. The next general manager comes in and then he gets the benefit of my patience. And so I think that there's a little bit of that ends up worming its way into this process when it shouldn't. Sages, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that, Sages. If Colts want to be ungrateful and bench Richardson, we should gladly take him and let him learn for a few under a good quarterback like ours. If they want to move him at this point, if they're open to moving him, his value isn't going to be any lower than it would ever be right now as a trade value for as far as from the Colts perspective. So if that's the role that they want to move with and go in that direction, I would gladly jump as well here. I think that they've done this wrong and they've done him wrong in this process. I don't think that John Schneider and the Seahawks would be as stupid in their approach. I don't. And we'll see what the Colts do here with this one. I imagine unlike Bryce Young, I think Richardson will probably remain. I think Young will be probably moved on after this year. But I think with Richardson, I think that they'll get probably enough blowback for especially some of these bad moments that have reflected poorly upon them. Last year, he gets injured because you're trying to make him a running quarterback. This year, he gets injured again after you try to make him a running quarterback. There's enough to them where they have to shoulder some of that. I think that keeps him there versus Carolina with Bryce Young, who can say, look, we spent $20 million a year on a guard for you. We brought in Damian Lewis to be your left guard. You've got a top 10 left tackle out there. You know, we signed Deontay Johnson. We've tried to give you some things to help you work. I mean, Dalton looks better running our offense than you do. They have a little bit more, I think, ammunition there to kind of come back to Bryce and be like, it just ain't going to work here. But I think Richardson probably remains. But to your point, Sages, if they want to give us him, hey, I'm all over it, man. I'll be all over it. Marshall Bakari is a kind man. He's a good gentleman. He's really a hero to this channel because he just subbed on up. So thank you, Marshall, for subbing on up to the channel. Please do hit that like button, sub on up, folks, if you're not already. Like I said, once we get to about 19.5, we're going to get this thing rolling. We're going to do a 24-hour for charity St. Jude stream. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. We're going to go hard, 24 hours. So try to get yourself over the top 24-hour period if you can to that big number on the sub. But I want to do that. But thank you for getting us there, Marshall, getting us on the road to that. Thomas Cox, thank you for the $5 donation. In the 2023 draft, I was pounding the table to trade up and grab Stroud, but even if they did, I doubt he would be successful with this offensive line. Well, thank you for the donation, Thomas. And as you know, I was a big Stroud guy. He was my #1 quarterback in that class. So, well, I did not want to necessarily trade up for Richardson because he was a project and wanted him more to land in my lap. If the team had traded up for CJ Stroud, I would have understood it. I think at the time I did say kind of that too, and I still do feel that way a little bit, where with Stroud, he's not a hugely mobile guy. He throws with great anticipation, and he can be really good about getting the ball out of his hands so quick to kind of beat the pressure. But if you put him behind this offensive line the past couple of years, to your point on that, I think you get him bashed. I think you get him broken. You know, I certainly don't think he's as productive as he would be with Houston. He might be decent, but you're really, this line has been so bad. And we're now drifting, but it's all the way around the world bad, really. You know, from how you got to run your scheme to a simplistic nature because you can't get blocking to the edges, to how much pressure you give up, and how imbalanced your offense is. That'd be tough on him and any rookie. But his talent was true, Thomas, that's for sure. My Joe Montana comp for CJ Stroud still is looking pretty damn good as a comp. They laughed at me, folks. When I said it during the day, they laughed at me. The Joe Montana. So I'm just saying, he's got that same kind of just flow. He's got that same Montana flow to him, man. You know? I call him Captain Butte. CR, it's also, what do they expect with AR-15? The unfinished specimen didn't get it done in like 10 games is exactly what we expected. If they're thinking of shopping him, I'm willing to grab him. I am too, man. Market opportunities, what we call that, CR. Somebody else wants to mess something up and screw up a situation and then blame something else for it. Fine. I'll jump on that. Colts have a little bit of an organizational problem, it would seem, in taking accountability. And here's the thing with Anthony Richardson too, is that bad organizations will do the same thing over and over again. And that's how with this, you can point this back to Richardson problem being not a Richardson problem, but being a Colts problem. Because what did they do with Luck? And it's a different issue. It's a different problem because they didn't turn Luck into an RPO guy, but they gave Luck an awful offensive line. And Luck went out there and he balled behind that offensive line, that bad offensive line. Balled. But he got crumbled and crushed and smacked around and bashed and broken. Because they had no foresight or imagination for the position other than be like Peyton. Well, you gave Peyton an offensive line. You know what, did we? I don't know. We don't. Yeah, you gave him really good offense. Jeff Saturday, legit tackles all the time. You gave him an off. Did we? But we like this Luck kid. We're just going to draft him and play him. Why don't you give him the offensive line? No, we just like him. We're going to play him. Why don't you maybe give him a little bit more? No, we're going to like him and play him. It's the way that organization goes. Ready, fire, aim. Dara. I'll be fine without a lot of draft picks in the future if we can get a top 13 offensive lineman. I'd be with it too, Dara. I'd be with it too. I give up quite a bit for that right now. I'm rolling into that same mode where I'm like, just please, by God, whatever it takes, get me something better than this. Overvalued, I don't care. Haley says Sling and Sammy Howe going to be our QB1 next season, and we're going to miss Geno. Oh, we will. And that one's not going to be a pretty. BP says, I think we still address the defensive line in the first round. I think we can pick up a guard in second or third round. Boy, that'd be brutal to go back to the D line again, man. Boy, it'd be tough, BP. I mean, 2 second-round picks in recent years on edges, $23 million in a year to Leonard Williams, and he cost you a second-round pick last year. And last year you put a first-round pick on a defensive tackle, and then you come back to another defensive tackle this year. Ornacity, I know, has a great video on young core giving up. Very interesting to think about. It's where I think as well, Ornacity, about the quarterbacks that have been given up on. I think, yeah, sure, moving up in the draft and getting a young quarterback's cool if you can go get one, but I think that's also where we have to be open from a possibility standpoint of it being a guy that may be a guy that's been in another location, who's been undersold a little bit, or who's been put in a bad situation to kind of fail at his first stop. And we realize that, and now that market opportunity arises. Three hours says China saves $8 million of cut in 25, $12 million of cut in 26. Let me see on the post June 1st on that. So 25 cap if oh, yeah, I guess you're about right on your numbers. Yeah, because he's got a $14 million base salary. You can post June 1st it and maybe get a little bit more, but you're in the neighborhood. Thomas says, I keep drafting 3 players, Malachi Starks at safety, and Parker Bradsford, the center for Bama, and Barrett or Russ Nussmeier of LSU. All pretty good players from what I've seen. Malachi Starks, I forget who we had in the chat last time on that. Thomas was really talking him up. Really good all-around player. Can do a lot of different things and would be certainly a clean fit for Macdonald's scheme. Elaine says, still think quarterbacks need to appreciate, still think quarterbacks need to apprentice like they used to. Most of the great ones did. I agreed 100%, Elaine. Great thoughts. I think it's wild how it just seems like to me that it just started to go away this way. When the more the teams got fascinated with the thought process that some quarterback can raise be the one boat lifts all a rising tide lifts all the boats, so to speak, and that they could be that rising tide. And I think that it's just a backwards ass way of looking at it, and that it's a poor expectation of a young kid coming out of college for him to do that or have that on his shoulders. But I think maybe we'll hopefully start to see this lean back in the old direction of this, which is the development angle, and that it takes a lot and to learn and master at this sport to get good at the position, and that you're learning all the way through from year 1 to year 4 to year 7 to year 10. You're continuing to grow your game and get little by little, better by better by better. Yeah, Mustafa's looking good for the Niners, Haley. Definitely missing him as well. He's a good player. I liked him too. Jeffrey says Colts will break AR before they trade him. At this rate, yeah. Renacity, spoon and safety would be interesting, but he's so good at man coverage, we need to use it more. Yeah, I think if you're definitely going to have to limit safety or nasty, you're going to do so with the thought process that you're going to be really rolling your safety to do a lot of man coverage kind of stuff, and that you're, going to have him not just being atypically back there cover two kind of stuff, but actually letting him really, by the nature of how you'll run your defense, driving on stuff and maximizing him from that safety position in that way. But maybe it might be the transition that they do make with him. It is definitely, I think it's in play. Possible. Guys, if the Colts would take a first for Richardson, would you do it? I lean towards a second at most, but intriguing thought. No, I wouldn't do a first round pick at this point. But would I throw him a second round pick? Probably. Maybe more Seahawks. B, do you feel like Mike runs some intricate stuff because when we tried Spoon and Woolen, they couldn't get home? Could be some of that. He said they can't even get to the intricate stuff right now in the interview this week, Phoebe, because they can't run the basic stuff, basically. So I don't know if it's as much as those guys are at the head of that or as much as just I think the whole team is just kind of on defensively right now, not able to run things past kind of the basics. And so they're talking about dialing things down, stripping it back right now as we go to the rest of this season. So I think the intricate stuff is definitely, here's the thing with the intricate stuff too, is like you've run a couple of blitzes with those guys, Phoebe, but it's not like you've run a lot of simulate pressures or stack fronts, or you're not really running a lot of intricacy this year so far. It's been mainly 4-man fronts. If you think they're going to run the ball and you're going to struggle stop the run in the 4-man fronts, you tried out the 3-4, but you've not really done a lot around that necessarily. It's been very simplistic, and Macdonald kind of confirmed that this past week on the radio. As a note, folks, we got a lot of people in chat. Just make sure, too, if you can, reference Brandon Hawksnest B if you are looking for a question or me to reference a comment, as we have kind of comments and discussions going on in the chat. So just a way for me to kind of pull out what's sort of meant for me and what's sort of meant for in the chat. CR, you have yourself a great day at work, man. Appreciate you watching. I would definitely at this point, we're coming up to the trade deadline. Let's walk it through and say that the Hawks do lose. I think that there's a couple of players. I think almost what you got to think of it from my standpoint is, if I'm John Schneider, is I have to get on the phone call to the 32 general managers and say that we're open for business, but we're not going to be in fire sale mode. So you better bring me a legitimate offer or don't call. But that also means that almost just about everybody's almost on the board and available. That is not going to be a substantial bonus money, dead money hit for me to have to take to go that route. Jackson Smith-Njigba is a guy that's not a bad player, but we have to be real about understanding that the schemes that we run are not going to work if we have players that can't do all of the things that we need them to do in the scheme. A spread system is going to require you to throw the ball short into your receiver's hands and have them work with our yak magic post catch. I've said, since going back and watching a lot of film on Jackson Smith-Njigba back at Ohio State, he is not a yak guy. It's just not who he is. He's not Tyler. He's not going to just fall down after he catches the football, but he's not a yak guy. So that's out. The worst rated run blocker on this offense right now is Jackson Smith-Njigba. So maybe you guys can see where I'm going with this one. Not a bad player, missing some things in his skill set that we have to work around. And if a team wants to call me up and say, we'll give you this, we'll give you that, we're receiver needy right now, I'm sorry, I'm not saying no on that. Not a bad player, but the player's got to fit to what you want the scheme to do. And if we're committed to running a spread scheme, not sure how this kind of quite fits. when it comes to JSN. Warchief, I'll be honest, a loss like that always sucks, but I'm not stressed at all. This is the 100% new team building, and as of a 12, I've been through so much worse. We're 4-4, not the worst thing. Not the worst thing. That's true. And I'm not giving up JSN on JSN necessarily space. I'm just saying that if there's a team calling up on the trade deadline, willing to offer me some pretty good assets back, we might be better suited to try to find more receivers that can do kind of some of the things we're going to want to have done in this scheme. The problem that you get down to is where you have a team where, well, this guy's talented and he can do this, but he doesn't do this that we need him to do. Yeah, but he can do this thing really well. And we got that player who can do this. It's really good. Yeah, but he also doesn't do this and that that's kind of inherently needed in the scheme. Yeah, but he does this good. And then we got this player over here and he does that really good. But yeah, but he doesn't do this and that. That's also part of what you'd want to be doing when we want to do this A, B, C, D, E in the scheme. The issue is then when you get a collection of players across the board that you're saying that about, now your schemes don't work on either side of the ball. And I have a suspicion here a little bit with that's what we have kind of going on a little bit in addition to a couple of things. Yeah, definitely reference me if you want me to read on the chat. We got a lot of great lively discussion in the chat tonight. I can't. We have that many people talking. It's got to be just. I'm gonna look for B, Hawks Nest, H&N, B. If you got a question or comment you want me to read, just post that on in there. I can't just do all the comments, especially when it's just hard to pick out what's referencing to me and what might be referencing to others in the chat. Haley B, how much would you be willing to give up for Richardson? JS allegedly really liked him. Hal for some picks. I mean, if you want to do Hal in a second round pick or something, I'd probably be talked into doing that. I wouldn't hate it. I do not want Bryce Young. Yeah, Bryce Young is a no-no. No. Erickson, how linebackers is it now that this year we went through 6? Something like that? Sounds about right. Joe Smith says that clown who mocked the crowd in Washington from Chicago and then got burned on the Hail Mary, would you cut him? If he was a sixth corner on the roster or something, you probably might do that at that point. But that he's your, I think, number 2 corner, Tyreek Stevenson. It just makes it impossible to do that. But boy, these players sometimes find new ways to just be morons with their manner. You know, game is on the line and you're trying to style on the crowd mid play. You just sit there and you go, what, like, are you high? No, legit, are you high? You're in the middle of an NFL football game. You've got your back to the quarterback who's throwing a Hail Mary. And it's so bad to the point that you have fans in the stands. They've taken pictures of fans. It's mid play and he's still sitting there. And fans are like pointing at him, look back, look back. It's one of the worst looks a player can have. That thing's worse than the guy. I don't know. I guess we'll ask the show what's worse. You know, what's worse, that not looking back for the Hail Mary as a cornerback for a Hail Mary that gets converted, or having an 80-yard touchdown and you're untouched and you're about to go in, but you start to pull off the gas and then you have a fumble caused on you that gets fumbled through the back of the end zone. I think the Hail Mary one would be worse. But you just talk about players, you just shake your head and you're like, oh my gosh. So, these players sometimes. Like, that should be the most straightforward thing that I don't have to tell you as a coach. Like, so during the play, it'll be a Hail Mary, right? For game. Okay, coach. For game. Yeah, I got it. Got it. And I want you to be watching what the quarterback's doing on the play. Run that one by me again, coach. I had you for, just start over again. They're throwing a Hail Mary on the play. All right, got it. Yes, got you there. Got you there. What's the next thing you're doing post-snap? Looking at the crowd because we got the win because they're throwing a Hail Mary because they're desperate? No. No. We got to knock the ball down. They have a chance to win. It's a Hail Mary, coach. Those never happen. They do sometimes happen. Okay. I don't know. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation. I love the emoji with just the emojis. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil. Appreciate you for that, Jeffrey. Randall McDaniel, thank you for the $2 donation. It says, season gets away from us. Are you okay with playing Sam? No, Sam's not in need. He's another guy that probably was in need of sitting on the bench himself for a little bit of time period, Randall. He's nowhere close to Geno Smith. I don't see the upside in making your offense, which has already been in somewhat at times a non-functional state, more non-functional so that you can get a look or a better look at Sam Howell. I think that as a coaching staff, if you can't make the determination of a guy with all of the practices that you have at the back, with all the preseason games, with all of the training camp, with all of the offseason in your program, and you can't make your proper determination about his upside and where he goes in his future to the point that you need to put him on the field to see what he's doing, I think your coaching process is a bit broken and your ability to evaluate is bad, I would say. So, no, he's not close, Randall. That's the problem there. Is Sam's not pushing Geno. He's not nipping at Geno's heels. Geno is well far above where Sam is as a player, and I just don't see what we gain by turning your offense from a semi-functional point to a non-functional point if Sam Howell takes over. He had better pass protection last year, Randall, with the Washington Commanders, and he was sacked 60-plus times through 21 interceptions. So, you know, do we think he'll be better here with worse pass protection? And I would think not myself. Jeffrey, Trey Lance needed to stay in college. Yeah, another guy that needed to stay in college too. You're right. Did not do themselves any favor. They got caught up and I'll be a top 5 pick. It's like, well, great, but are you ready? You know, you lost your whole final season in college due to the whole vid year thing. Erickson says we have an island of misfit toys on offensive line. Yeah, it's kind of like that right now, Erickson. So that, not that they're bad, it just doesn't fit congruently together. Well said. Phoebe says, I like your idea with the salary cap. I'd like to have a criteria met to be paid like a top quarterback and not just you're the next man up mentality. Yeah, I agree. I am a fan. There is some pushback on this, but I am a fan of this quarterback salary cap. I just think it's ridiculous how much they're getting paid. And it's just, everyone just pays their guy because they get caught up in the process. They have to do it. And I don't know. I'm a big dog in that fight, to be honest with you. They want to not do it, then don't. But if I had a choice on it, I'd probably go the other way with it. Stackhouse would be a nice pick for us. I've heard the name on that one, but Erickson says, seeing Geno childishly throw the ball, throw the game football at the other team turned back made me think he's not ready. Well, maybe not. It's not a good look for him, that's for sure. You're right. You can't do that as a quarterback. So I don't push back on any of that, man. Get off the boat, we're sinking. War Chief Brandon, I feel like not just Richardson, but all the other young quarterbacks from around the time were expected to win right away. Now they're all benched. NFL has a quarterback developmental problem. They do. Talk a bit about it at the top of the show tonight, War Chief. It's absolutely what I think is at play. You know, in being at this channel and show a lot that I have railed on this for a couple of years. It's a recent development in the NFL, and it's a quickening cycle and process of expecting these young babies of quarterbacks to get up on not only onto their feet, but to get to a full-blown sprint and to get there very fast. and I think it's really unreasonable. It does create market opportunities in a couple of different directions on this. I think it does tell you that you probably shouldn't be the team to put a bunch of package of picks together to move up for quarterbacks, because that is the mind virus that's overtaken these teams. Package the picks, get the guy up there. Hopefully you get the magical one, throw him right out into the field. Is he magic? Is he not? Oh, he's not magic. Knock him off the field. Go find another one, right? So that's a hungry, just you've got these teams that are just chasing down that rabbit like a dog, and you got to not be the team doing that. But the market opportunity around the edges of this is where you got to go to me, being that, okay, maybe it's not the first round guy we're looking at. Okay, maybe it is a guy that's been in another program that decided to throw their guy away prematurely because they didn't have the supporting cast around him. That's where, to me, the eyes should be when it comes to looking to the next Seahawks quarterback potentially, is that way. El Nino, I went to my first Seahawks game this past weekend. I'll say Seattle home games are like a college homecoming event. The game was a disaster, but great football atmosphere. Oh, hell yeah, El Nino. It's cool to hear. Stale B, does Chuck Knox have any kids we could hire as an offensive coordinator? I don't think he does. I don't think he does. Yeah, Seahawks receivers don't AC their Ys, right? That's why would we trade a cheap wide receiver with BDK deal, not JSN? As I said, the two reasons I just gave you, Nagasa, there at the top, with it being not a fit for the offense. I don't think he's necessarily a difference maker from the slot. There may be teams that overvalue him at the deadline. There are receiver-hungry teams out there. John, why can't we fire Grubb and hire an offensive coordinator who is shown to have an efficient run game and pour most of your resources into both lines? Signing high-end talent in free agency seems easy. Maybe a possibility of the way they go this offseason, John. Arthur Smith, we know, was their first candidate that they were going to look at. Arthur Smith's doing a good job with Pittsburgh and Russell Wilson right now, and that's the offense that you would have been running here if he would have brought, which would have been run heavy and not as much of a high-volume passing attack. So he might reverse course this offseason, that he swung for the fences with this Grubb hire and that he was not able to not hit the ball at the park, but swung and missed. So maybe he goes a bit different direction with it on it. To your point with that. Jeffrey says, never seen such butterfingers. They literally wear gloves with stick 'em on it. Yeah, I know. It's true. Haley says, I love JSN, but we need a GD guard. Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do. Snail says, what are you really getting for JSN? His hands aren't even that good, and that's supposed to be his selling point. Well, and I'm not saying you sell on him just to sell for the sake of selling. I'm just saying that, again, if you can take advantage of the fact that this is right now, as we get to the trade deadline, there are some teams out there that would like to get themselves some receiver help. And there may be some teams that look at the JSN evaluation and beyond what he's done as a pro, really liked what they had him as a scouting report. A lot of these teams, Snail, that go make these moves for players, some of it will be quantifiably built on what they thought of him coming out. And they look at it and they go, well, that team didn't do this guy right and use him in the right way. We'll use him over here in this way. And so he'll be way better for it. It may not exist as a situation, but it can sometimes show itself to exist. And if that does pop up, then we just need to be, in my opinion, ready to make a move on that if it shows it, if there's a team calling in that way. Selva says, I think JSN's a stud. We just haven't used him yet very well, but he stepped up for DK being done. I think it takes a little time, so receivers just take longer to develop. Yeah, maybe. I like the optimism on JSN. I do. To my eyes, I don't see much of a difference maker out there. To my eyes, I see a guy with a very limited catch radius. I don't see a really good contested catcher. I don't see a guy that's going to be able to win on the outside. I don't see a good blocking guy. I think he's a good route runner. I think he can be a functional receiver in this league. But my outlook is that's kind of where he's at from my eyes right now. I don't know about the receivers take longer to develop thing. Some receivers do. There's a lot of receivers, though, that take right from the jump. That if they're difference makers and they're that good, especially first-round receivers, that you get to feel their impact. And you can see what they're bringing to the table on that. You know, JSN's averaging like 8 yards a catch or something right now. You know, I mean, he's not stretching any part of the field. It's not a bad guy necessarily, but to say that he's a difference maker just waiting to pop up on the other side of that scale, I don't know if it's very accurate either. Sam, hey B, I know you didn't like the Harrison trade from the Jacks, but I think it's a really good trade if you plan to cut Draymond Jones. They could add a void year or extend him to a 1-year deal to bring down the cap. Yeah, I'm okay with that, Sam. I mean, it's at the end of the day, it's one that I was kind of down on, but I wasn't like pulling my hair out of it, or you've somehow, you know, put yourself in peril from a cap situation or draft pick situation with making that move. And this is a bit of that process that I'm open to, even Sam, into this trade deadline where, you know, we may have talented guys. We may have guys that are even good on this team, but you may have to just bring in certain specific players with certain specific skill sets to make this defense run exactly how you want to run it to the nth degree. And I think that's the part that I'm trying to get more into my imagination point on this and in understanding and accepting a little bit with that. But I'm okay with that. It's fine on that move at the end of the day with that. Sam, and just add it, the draft's looking weak and you're not getting any kind of player for 6th rounder. Maybe so. Maybe so on that. We'll have to see once we get to the draft on that point, but possibly. Brian E. the Hawks Nest. Most of the young kids coming out of college think they're too cool for school, and that's part of the problem. NIL and title shopping via transfer portal contributes to that. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing a bit of a mentality in pros now as they come out here that is dissuading. And I've got to be honest, there's a lot of these pros coming out now that I think entitlement is a good way to put it. My stuff don't stink, you know. How dare anybody question what I do? I'm awesome. There's a little bit of this kind of growing mentality here on that a bit on this. That's, you know, I don't know if it's from them just being made to be millionaires at 18 years old and that your head goes, but some of the mentality of athlete in the modern era is changing, and something's changing it, and it doesn't always endear you really well to them. You start to hear the attitude, you start to hear the way they talk, and you're like, oh, okay. It's a moment like the Trayvon Diggs thing the other day. You know, you guys have probably seen it where there's the play where Trayvon Diggs is not giving out full effort. Not giving out full effort on the play. It goes to George Kittle. It's not that he's covering George Kittle, but he's over the top. Kittle runs after the catch. He's going upfield. Kittle's running like a maniac, like he does. And Trayvon Diggs is loping his way up the football field, waiting for somebody else to come up there and make the play. It's like I talk about with our defense, and I see it on our team. I see it, man. I'm telling you, I see it. And you go, I know what I just saw. And in that case, in Trayvon Diggs, you know what you just saw. Go watch that cut up, and you tell me he's given out 100% of his effort there, that he's given everything he's got on that play. A player, by the way, that I can go back to college in Alabama and scout that guy coming out in Trayvon, a wide receiver convert to cornerback, that I could question a little bit of his effort defensively speaking. Now, he's gotten better as a player, as a tackler in that light, but that play, there's no doubt about it. You're in the wrong. You're in the wrong. And a reporter tweets out, what's he doing here? He doesn't tweet out garbage, trash. This guy needs to... What's Trayvon Diggs doing here? And Trayvon Diggs decides to come up and get in his face as he's walking the locker room. And the players love. The players are so lame in their... they say, never make an argument of authority. And the players love doing that. I do this, you don't. So shut up. Oh, so you're not addressing what I was asking on the play is what's with your effort level here? Instead, I'm a professional. You're not a professional, so shut the F up. But don't tell me my eyes are lying. And this is a little bit of what we're getting right now. And I wonder, you speak about this, but I think this is more big picture kind of stuff here, where I look at this team a little bit on the accountability front to that. And that, like we talk about, that modern athlete's mind at play here a little bit. You get a moment this past week where Jaron Reed's doing what I've seen NFL leaders do for 40 years over my life, which is when a young player does something boneheaded and dumb on the football field, he gets up in his face. Last year, Bobby Wagner got up in the face of Devin Bush when Devin Bush was starting to lose his mind in a Cardinals game, grabbed him, and shut that S down. And did Devin Bush bark up? Did Devin Bush get in Bobby's face? You better believe he did not. But that's what Bobby's supposed to do. That's what Jaron's supposed to do. But then what do we have? You made a mistake. You messed up. You deserve that ass chewing. And yet you don't want to take that ass chewing. You don't want to accept you did something wrong. Well, then how can you hope to ever fix it and get over around these mistakes? You won't. Accountability. And this isn't to throw shade at Hall or to say but it is something that you notice a little bit from this modern athlete, where they can be staring right there at something that's blatantly they're in the wrong on, and they somehow want to be pissing on your leg and telling you it's raining. And it's like, no. Nope. Not too true. Dwyer, how much of a roster turnover do you think there will be in this offseason? A major amount. O'Dwyer. I don't think last offseason was the time you're going to see the cuts. I think it's going to be, if it continues on the same, some of this, O'Dwyer, is, of course, how this season plays out. If you get more resonance with the players and things start to bounce back around a little bit, this could change. But if it's going to stay on its current trajectory, then I would expect there's going to be a lot, but just because you've got to send a message on buy-in, commitment, effort level. And I don't know of any other way to do that than in this modern NFL than but the stick. You got the carrot and the stick, and if the carrot ain't doing the trick, you got to use the stick. John says, why can't we fire Grubb and hire an offensive coordinator who has shown... Oh, sorry, I read that already. My bad. Jeffrey B., boxers or briefs? Boxers, man. Number one, it's not good for your nut crew to be squished all up like that, okay? You need that sucker out and able to breathe, okay? Nothing worse than when you're wearing those tighty whities and you got to pull down there and you get your nut twisted up on your leg, up on the thigh, and you got to do that move because there's always like 5 people watching you when you go to do it. Like nobody can be looking at you. Second you go down to start pulling and tugging at that thing, you all suddenly got 5 eyes of people giving you the look like, are you really grabbing your nuts right now? It's like, it's twisted. What do you want me to do? I'm in pain right now. But no, I got to wobble my way over to the bathroom, pull that sucker down. Boxers, baby. Boxers. All day. Sean says, sorry, B, but Richardson ain't it. He's the same player he was in college. Giving up anything substantial would be a complete waste. Understandable. And I don't have a big dog in the fight on this one, Sean. So I'm not pining for him. I'm just, in general terms, somebody would ask me if I would, then I would in general terms. And that's an outlook for me that's more about this. You draft a guy that's coming out, and here's the requirement if you want this guy to develop. In my opinion on this. And what that was, Sean, was to take Richardson and say he's got to sit for 2 years. And I'm not being Johnny come lately on this, of course, Sean, because you can go back and look at my prior draft coverage on Anthony Richardson of when he was picked, because a lot of talk about this because we were considering him. And I said at the time, so I'm being still supremely consistent on this, which is that he needs to sit for 2 years if you draft him. No, seasoning is not the answer. No, throwing him out in the football field is not the answer. And what the Colts have done is take the opposite approach of what I prescribed. Now, you completely might be right and that he ain't it. And all of this is just evidence of the fact that Richardson sucks donkey dong and that he ain't ever going to make this happen. But from where I come from on this standpoint, is the whole reason in the first place that I want to sit him the first 2 years is because if you rush him on the football field, you're going to have him build bad habits. You're not going to have him ready to play. You're going to be leaning too much in on his legs and you're going to get him injured. These are the things that I said at the time that are the things that the Colts have done. So for this to be the end result on Richardson right now, to me, confirms the exact things that I was talking about 2 years ago. And if you can give him those conditions, does it guarantee he will be successful moving forward into the future in year 3, 4, 5 at a different stop? No. But you put him in a much better position to be able to succeed. And I don't think that you can make this kind of proper evaluation of him now when the Colts have so heartily messed the situation up from their standpoint of it. A reason I just say that it's so important on this to make sure you're taking care of your ABCDEs as an organization for the quarterback, the right system in place, the right head coach in place, the right offensive scheme for the player, the right timeline for when he is right to play and when he's not right to play. And the teams that do that right and correct are the teams that are able to maximize that quarterback and get to his upside. And with Richardson, there's no doubt about the upside. It's about how do you get him to it? Or can he get to it? So I get what you're coming from, and you might be right. But that's just kind of my stance on him when I look at him and what the Colts have done there. And I think it can't be overstated the damage it does when a team takes the wrong approach to a young, talented quarterback. And how bad that can make that young quarterback look. And he might just be that bad, but it might also be just that organization was doing him so dirty. O'Dwyer, are there any good nose tackles in the upcoming draft? Ohio State's got a decent one. He's a more kind of your nose tackle, can do a little pass rush type stuff, like Tyleik Williams. I got to check in on Deontay Corleone. He's gone quiet the last couple of years. Guy I was looking at for last year in the draft and went back to college. But I haven't done a lot of draft coverage or look at stuff right now with Dwyer. I got to be honest with you on it. In doing the coverage in past years, especially doing shows centered around kind of draft coverage at this time, there hasn't been as much of a hunger for it. So, I'll do a lot of background looking and watching and stuff and come to find that it's kind of a niche sort of thing still. So I'll look a little bit more as we get past this season, but I'm making more of a tactical decision this year, O'Dwyer, of staying more into game film, working on videos for what's going on NFL action wise. You have to kind of choose your hours of the day where you go. Do you want to put 2 hours to the college film and scouting guys, or 2 hours to the channel and putting more into that? And I've gone with the alternative here to the other side of it, just because there's not quite that hunger there that I would anticipate there'd be for the draft stuff. It's there. It's not quite there as much as the other stuff in other ways. But I'll get to that stuff eventually here as we get down to the more kind of in the depths of the season. Sam, by the end of the year, the defense will get going. We knew it was going to take some time. Going to be patient. And just know next year is the competitive year. I love the optimism, Sam. Thank you, man. That's awesome. I hope you're right, brother. Hand grenade. Apparently, the NFL is looking into replaying the Hail Mary because the Bears were complaining about holding calls not being called. I don't think the NFL is going to do that. I mean, the whole thing was probably there. Probably should be called. Some of it is that you tell those officials in that moment to sort of swallow the whistle and let them play, but you can't let it get egregious. And I agree with John. Got to build up the lines using draft capital, man. Make them a strength. Nate says, I really believe it's more just mind-numbing mistakes over everything else that's ringing us. It's not so much lack of talent or bad scheme. Yeah, I agree. I mean, could be mind-numbing mistakes. I think that there's a lack of sometimes always consistently putting your full will into it, play in and play out. But yeah, it's not necessarily talent related. John says, how dope would it be to get Ben Johnson for offensive coordinator next year? Oh, John, he's already circling around that Chicago job, letting it leak out that he wanted that job last year. Getting Chicago fans all frothing. Sam, you think they're going to fire Grubb after a half a year coming from college? Sheesh. I thought he was doing not too bad. No, I don't want to fire him after. I'm not looking to fire him. You might be sorry. Again, if you guys got something related to me, just put B, Brandon, Hawk's Nest, because sometimes I'll respond to something I think you're responding to somebody else in the chat on. Because certainly that's not where I'm at with it. And again, Nagasa with JSN, it's not that he's a bad player. Just don't think he's a fit for the offense and what you need to do. And I don't think he's any kind of real difference maker for the position. I think he's like a league average slot. It's pretty much what you're getting cumulatively from him when you throw all of his skill set into the blender and then you pour it out into the cup. That's what pours out into the cup. If there's a team that's going to overvalue that out in the main market for that, and you can sell them at the high time right now at as highest values you can get for him at that point, considering the lack of fit, I would do it. Not looking at shopping him, just saying if there's a team that's a coming, a calling. Greg, Brandon Dante Culpepper was my comp for Anthony Richardson during the draft. Do you think that's a fair comp for him, or do you think he could be better? I think he's got more mobility upside to him than Culpepper. So Culpepper was probably a little further along in his development at his age versus where Richardson is as far as slight differences, but I think it's a fair comp. I think it's in the ballpark, Greg. Snail B, it's still wild to me we took JSN after he didn't play his senior year. I hated that pick so much. I was a little bit worried about it as well. Been almost a whole year since you had seen him play on the field when you drafted him, you're right. Yeah, that had me a concern too. So Hazard, that snap was egregious, but I don't know why Grubb run a third inside with K9 at the goal line. A simple side pass to Lockett or JSN or even Fan would get the job done. Play calling down the goal line, to your point, SL recently has just been kind of I don't know that. I think we did 3 straight runs or something like that before that point. Nagasa out on Richardson. Bill, okay, we have a new coach, entire new staff, and several new players. It's going to take a while. Patience, people, patience. For sure. I'm with you on that. Long live the king. Thank you for the $5 donation. IMO. The problem is the modern NFL, there's not 7 first-round quarterbacks every year. It's more like 2. There's not 12 top market contract quarterbacks. It's about 3. The overvalue of the position. Yeah, you're touching on, I think, a keynote part of it. They get overdrafted. Everything becomes a little bit about capturing this theory that you got to get the quarterback on the rookie deal, and then that's how you get to the Super Bowl on the cheap rookie contract. You get the 5th-year option for the quarterback you take in the first round. All of these things drive you to then take the quarterback, and if he's a first-round quarterback, then that then drives you to get him out on the football field as fast as possible. First, if you take a guy in the 2nd, 3rd round, you're more going to think about it like, developmental guy. We won't rush him out there as fast as we might another. And you're right. You're right. Overpaid, overdrafted. I mean, John this offseason was talking about guards being overdrafted, interior offensive linemen being overdrafted and overpaid, but it's absolutely the case of the quarterback position above all else. Yeah. Well said. Long live the king. And I agree with you all the way down the line on that one. Donnie in the house. How you doing, Donnie? What's up? And yeah, Chris, unfortunately, Draymond Jones is not tradable right now. Number one, probably I don't know if that injured AC joint's going to pass a physical if you did move him. Number 2, you have to wait till the offseason to really save any kind of money on him on any kind of deal. Joe Zeason says, seems like the Rams and Niners find impact players in the later rounds. You're 100% right, Joe. It's one of the problems that I've got with this team right now on the development draft part of things and looking past just, let's say, the last 3 years. Tariq Woolen's really the only guy past the 4th round and onwards that's really giving you anything close to solid play. And that's even beyond looking for impact guys. Whereas you look at the Niners, for instance, just this last draft alone, Ricardo Green jumping in front of DK Metcalf, making an interception. Malik Mustafa all over the field for them. Physical, hitter. Looks like a safety with true upside. Isaac Guerrero, very nice running back. He's making it happen as the 3rd guy popping on in there. The Dominic Pony in the 3rd round even. They're getting that value, and the Rams have been very good about doing this as well. Rams have been missing 1st-round picks for years, but you wouldn't know it by the fact that they're able to continue to get really good players developed along through that team. And this is where we're not able to get anything done after the 4th round. We kind of get just guys at best. Hopefully we can improve on that. Jeffrey, if I was a millionaire at 18, I'd be a party every night. Yeah, it's probably pretty hard not to be pulled in that direction. Wu-Tang, Richardson needed another year in college. You don't learn to surf at Mavericks or Nazarene. Dude wasn't ready. He also might never be great. A great athlete doesn't necessarily mean he's going to be a great quarterback. It's well said. I would agree with you 100% on that. Yeah. Hard to see where he's going to go exactly on the outlook, but it could go a couple different ways. Yep, Nagasa, they draft really good in later rounds. It makes it all that worse when you're looking at Dominic Pooney as a top 10 guard in this league this year, top 10 guard in the league this year. And Haynes can't even solidify a starting position with Bradford as the baseline. Jamarge Bread says, yeah, man, that Trayvon Diggs incident is embarrassing for him. I don't give him credit. He's apologized and come back on it. But it just, what's your brain doing in the first place? Yeah. And it is water under the bridge with the Hall and the Jaron Reed situation. Nick says the team doesn't seem serious. They don't show up half the time. I think that's a fair criticism. I do. I think it's fair. 360 to the simple comment about Macdonald's comment. I feel like he wants to get a steady baseline that's buildable from that point. I can't build on a shitty foundation. True. Well said, guys. Well said. El Nino, do you think Jarrell can be the long-term answer at right tackle if Abe can't get healthy? Probably not. I think really what Mike Jarrell more likely slides into is the Stone Foresight swing tackle role of the past couple of years. You're between your left tackle and right tackle, even best case scenarios, you're probably going to need a guy to start a collection of games over a 3-year period on that rookie deal. And I think that he's showing you with this that he can at least do that. But he took kind of a step back this week. He wasn't great necessarily in week 1. He's probably a little bit in over his head right now, as it's a big jump from the level of competition of where he was to where he's at. And he's a developmental guy with some true upside to him, El Nino. But I think we haven't seen enough from him to think that he can be necessarily the answer long-term at right tackle. Hand Grenade B, I'm in the boat with the players are the problem. I'm more drifting into that. I'm climbing into that same boat as well at this point, pretty much hand grenade. The causes is Mankini. Chris's bow-legged kneel maneuver, the boys, and carry on. I don't mind. My boys will get twisted up. If I go to the kneel maneuver, it might be more of like I'm on the rack, you know? Like I'm on the rack and I'm getting the extra twist. You know what I'm saying? And where it's like the only thing that can get you off of it is straight legging it. It's a straight leg and a subtle pull. And the key on the subtle pull is you've got to do the leg. You got to do the leg like I'm knocking dust off of my pants. So it's knock the dust off the pants, subtle pull and draw, lean right and back. So you'll never get caught. So you know after this is this little old man trick for you guys, you know. So dead leg out, one quick, oh, he just must have some dirt on his pant. I guess maybe he was out and doing some man stuff or something. And then they'll be thinking that, and as they're thinking that, then the draw and the tug, and then you got to do the pullback move. So you got to draw the hips back and then a little bit of the rolling of the hips to dislodge that sucker, especially if you're like me and you got a flying squirrel in your pants. All right, let's keep it going here. Let's keep it rolling. Patrick says, they say that this next draft isn't good, but who are you eyeing? I've taken a bit of a step back on the draft coverage. It's and not because I don't like doing it, I do, but as I was kind of speaking to above on this, I'll get a kind of random question throughout the season on prospects, but to jump on these prospects and to take the time away from doing other stuff for the channel or my clips channel or prepping for shows like this week, prepping for these weekly roundup shows and whatnot, I made a bit of a determination this offseason that I was going to make more of a concentration and point of emphasis during the season towards actually the channel itself, because there's only 24 hours in the day thing and I got only so much time. So I've got to kind of cut it to the places that are most fruitful. So when it comes to doing the scout stuff, guys, I'm probably more going to be about a month out on really starting to really do much deep dives on this stuff, because I just don't see as much of the, I'll get my questions on this. And I have looked at some of these guys, but I haven't done really as much of a deep dive to it to make, ultimately determinations on one guy, on one guy or the other at this point as it sort of stands right now. It's a bit of a weaker draft. We're only going to, as it looks like on the outside looking in, maybe have maybe 10 real blue chip guys. It might be even as low as like 8 when it all gets said and done. Some of the hard part of this is I don't know where the direction the team will be going or what they'll exactly even be in play for necessarily. Obviously, offensive line would be the centerpiece of what I'd be looking for. But well, I'll start to ramp it up in probably about a month on that side of it. Haley B, I just looked it up. Tell me how the Colts had at least 6 drop passes up to 8, depending on how you credit them. That's absurd. Some of those drops were bad too. That's what I was saying, where people will lock in on his completion percentage, but this is always where I say, Haley, I always tell people we can't always do it, but that's where you've got to pair the stats, the analytics. That stuff's good and well, all stuff to be taken into account, but you always got to come back and be watching the tape in addition to it and pairing those both together. Otherwise, you're not getting the whole story. And this, especially when it comes to things that are requiring the supporting parts argument that I bring up often. And yeah, when you go and look at the Colts and some of the drops, even in this last game, there are some brutal drops where Richardson's putting some dimes out there. Is it a contested catch? Is it a little close? Yeah. Is it kind of a contested catch? You guys got like Alex Pierce out there that doesn't generate a lot of separation on his route? Yeah. So, I mean, he's got to make that catch. And not enough of those guys are doing him right in that way, Haley, where it's like, pick the kid up, make the catch. So yeah, there's some brutal ones in that game. William Hawksnest, Kenneth Walker was announced as a Nickelodeon Slime Times Week 7 MVP. The next week, they usually dumped slime on him, but they said he was still sick, so Mike Jarrell got slimed instead. Poor Kenneth, man. That was a brutal cold. Brutal. Greg, yeah, Richardson didn't have many starts in college. I don't know if it was 17 or 13. I forget what it was. It was one of those two numbers, mixing him up with someone else too, probably, but it was one of those. It's one of those two. Yeah, I mean, it's not enough starts, he needed more time. $13 starts. There we go. Yeah, I thought it was that. David Hatcher, our defensive personnel doesn't match the scheme we're trying to run. Also, it seems like we never play man coverage. Agreed and agreed, David. I see the same thing. It's a bit of what has me leaning on probably being sellers of the deadline and kind of embracing that if the opportunities arise to flip out some of these mismatched parts for what will work, or at least get you onto the road to getting to what will work, even if it be just a draft pick in the future that'll get you there. SL Hazard, Richardson's talented, but he's 23. He's 23 games he's played since he's left high school. He's not ready to start yet. Unexperienced. Yes, agreed. It's just he needs time to sit and learn this game better, work on his skills. Do that lonely work of getting better at film and learning defenses better and getting himself prepared in that way. Sloppy Juan, no, we don't have to pay Sam Howell. He's on a $1 million contract both this year and next year. Cheap backup. So on, how does Mike's first season stack up against Dan Campbell's first year? I think we're in a better spot than most people are giving Mike credit for. Maybe. I mean, it's Campbell had to fire his offensive coordinator in his first year. I think that there's a pretty strong argument to be made that Mike Macdonald probably inherited more pure, better talent than Campbell got walking into the Lions. But it is the first year, and you are expecting there to be a bit of a process with that. Be more Seahawks. Hawks Nest. B. If you have an edge rusher or any skill position on top of the board in draft value wise, but you have a guard at like 5 on the value board, but John picks the guard, would that be need? Yes. Yes. But like I say, with all philosophies, feed me, is that you've got to be committed to being in the value-based mantra of things. But you also have to realize when the market is shifted in a way that is changed. And when it comes to offensive linemen in this sport right now, they've become more valuable than at any time in NFL history, and they're not getting any less valuable anytime soon. And you're going to have to start to factor in more than that pure board of value as you build a line here, especially considering how bad the lines have been built here recently, that while you may not want to elevate in that way, we start to get to more of a place of, can I just go draft a functional guard to get into place more than even a dominant guard? Because you can't even get functional or functional center, functional tackles, whatever. So I think they're going to have to start making more of a bit of a compromise to that value board when it comes to linemen specifically, because they are getting overdrafted, but there are valuable ones that are in every draft. And maybe you have to give up prime assets to go get that good one that you want to go get. But Cooper Beebe, for instance, feed me. The Seahawks were trying to trade back up into the second round to go get Cooper Beebe, who would have been a good guard or center for your Seahawks moving forward. My favorite guard of the draft. And they didn't want to give up the draft capital it was going to take to move up into the second round. And that's the kind of moves where you're going to have to make that move. You're going to have your come to Jesus moment where you're going, okay, well, we guess this, I don't like to do this, but what other way that we have to do this but to do it? And I'm not against it from that standpoint of it. You got to adjust to the market sometimes. As hard as that would be. Addicted. Anyone know if Spoon's been playing hurt? Has a new girlfriend or something else? I don't know. He's having a bit of a sophomore slump. That's for sure. Press on. B. The reason the season is going the way it's going is because everyone except our general manager is new to this. Players being coached up wrong. 2 or more players in the same gaps. Not able to mask the weaknesses. I'm with that. I'm completely okay with that as far as being the reasoning here. I do think I might add on to that a little bit of and not able to mask the weaknesses. I think some of the lack of masking the weaknesses have to do with, I'm not sure these players are all real great fits for your scheme per se either. There's some fits, there's some that are not, I think. But I think that's all very fair. Nate, what's the rumor about the Hawks getting the linebacker from the Titans? What will we give the Titans? We already got the linebacker from the Titans. I haven't heard about another rumor about a different linebacker. So I'm not sure which one you might be speaking of, but we just got Ernest Jones that we traded last week. Greg Brandon, Walter Nolan is an option at nose. He can play 3 tech, 3-4 defensive end, and some snaps at defensive end, which would allow Murphy to be put back at 3 tech, to 3-4 defensive end. The Hawks could do more moving around depending on the matchups. Sounds good to me. It'd be hard to go back to the defensive line early in this draft, Greg. I will say maybe it's the necessity here, but boy, is it going to get brutal to just keep putting this many assets into that side of it year after year, especially because we've not gotten the returns in doing that necessarily. But maybe it's the thing that's called for here. I haven't had a chance to look at him myself. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for the $5 donation. I appreciate you for that, Jeffrey. I'd be less annoyed if it wasn't for the blooper reel nonsense, like the first down fumble forward and 20-yard backward pass from the center. Clown. Yeah, it's been some particular brutal moments in this year where you've had some spots where you're just like, really? Like, really? Oh my gosh, really? But it has played out that way, unfortunately, and just makes a bad loss even more tough when you get those kind of moments. The fumble especially, that was one of those moments you watched in the game that you just couldn't help but feel, and I don't really believe in this, but there's a part of me that kind of believes in it, where you see the ball bouncing and it makes this miracle bounce, where your player does something awesome, but the bounce just happens to go right into the hands of a guy. And it's like that play where you've had a hard time causing turnovers. You cause a turnover and it bounces forward right into the hands of the opposition and for a first down. Okay, maybe it's not our day. Maybe this one ain't happening. Snail says, B, you're doing it wrong. You don't hold eye contact when you adjust yourself. That's true. That's true. That was only just for the instructional purposes here on the stream. Thank you, man, Jeffrey, for the donation, brother. Patrick, you think we're going to extend or keep K9? Felt like a wasted pick because of our offensive line is boo-boo. If we move on from him, I think McIntosh could be next up. He would be the number one centerpiece guy that I think you could maybe get the most for at the trade deadline right now, being K9. I think there's teams across the league that like his potential and see that we had a bad offensive line that we've given him and might give us a nice little trade haul back in return. And I really don't see the intelligence behind paying K9 at this point. Number one, it doesn't work out for NFL teams to pay running backs by and large. You can find some success stories here and there, but by and large, if we're going to take a rule of thumb, it's not a good idea. Number two, you have neither the offensive scheme yet in place, nor do you have the offensive line in place to get the most out of K9. This is one of those great arguments that's always asked about of whether or not a great running back can overcome the bad offensive line to still go out there and be productive. And the answer is not really. They can still get you some production, but they ultimately can't be that same level of productive that they could be if you could actually give them a working line. And right now, we're just not close with that line to giving him that. In fact, the run blocking is getting worse as the year goes along, not better. So if that opens up, I'll jump on it with 2 feet if somebody's going to offer me a great pick for it. I don't think it makes sense to go down the line on that. I love K9. I do. I think he's one of the players really helping us on this team, so I don't want to push in that way. He missed some holes this last week. He missed some holes on the tape this last week, did K9. But I'd go down that line. I would. We got to be a little bit cutthroat at this point to get this roster in the right spot, I think. Snail says Dan Campbell's team had a clear identity by the end of the year. They did. He got it established. Something we are missing right now is identity. And Space, I'm with you, man. Go get the best offensive lineman. Come hell or high water, find a way to make this happen. Find a way to start stacking these guys up on this line. Get this more talented. Nate, if the Hawks lose and have a horrible season, what general manager would be a good fit for the Hawks? I know it's a hard question to answer, just curious. I haven't done much scouting out there around the available general managers that are out on the market, Nate. I don't think that there's one that jumps out to me that's sitting out there that's a great general manager who's just waiting on the prime job to be had. On the tip of my tongue with that. Just don't have anybody that I'm really aware of. I like Big 12 corn-fed linemen too, John. Nothing wrong with going after those guys. They get the job done. Howard Ma, would you still like the Seahawks to go after Clowney? The only way I would do it is based on, I mean, that's where the hinge point comes to this game, Howard. Because if you come out and you can play with the Rams at home, if you can start to show that there's some stabilization here, you want to go make a move for a Clowney that's not going to cost you a lot. It's not going to sacrifice future space to do it. I'm okay with it. Am I as inaggressive a mode as I was a couple weeks ago to making that move? Maybe not as much. But if you get the win, then I would do it. If you're not going to get the win and you lose again in the same manner, there's no way I would do it. But even right now, I'm a little more hesitant. The team just doesn't look like they're a player away from going up over the top in that way, or he helps out the team, but we're still not close to getting into the playoffs as they're currently trending here. Snails is B. The Niners built their current team by dumping a ton of assets in the line. Then Bosa made them elite. Yep. That's a bit of it. Yeah. They got Debo. They hit on Debo. They hit on Kittle. I mean, those guys aren't high first-round guys themselves. Fred Warner's not a high-drafted guy. Dre Greenlaw's not a high-drafted guy. Jadarius Ward's not a high-drafted guy. They had Ward in there before at safety, who played really well for him early on. Not a high-drafted guy. And they also got productivity from things outside of highly drafted guys to get them to where they got. But they put more assets into their lines. That's for sure. Nate says there was a tweet about a rumor of the Hawks wanting to get Harold Landry. I forgot what page it was on. XB. He's never done a whole hell of a lot for me. I found like Harold Landry's always been a little bit of an overrated player in this league. Not bad, but just a guy. I will say that Derek Hall is having to play probably too many snaps right now. And the team may not have a lot of confidence that Uchenna is going to get back, but I would expect, I'd be surprised if they made a move for another edge like that. You streaming tonight, B? I'm going to probably do something over on Twitch tonight. So if you guys aren't, do get subbed up over to my Twitch channel. It's down in the description section below, the link to my Twitch channel. But I'll probably be over there. I don't know if I'm going to be doing some basketball 2K or I got the new COD, so I might be doing a little bit of that. John's the higher recruited linemen don't seem to have the dog mentality. They might not. Especially in this day and age where they're getting paid so young, John. Addicted Brandon, saying the O-line blocking is getting worse is an insult to the word worse. Bad joke. Getting insulting the word I would use. It's brutal, man. It is brutal. SL, I think we should consider trading K9 next year if the O-line isn't good, but we better have his replacement ready. Well, I mean, Jack Charbonnet is still on the roster. I do think, too, SL, that he's going to want to be paid after this year. He's going to come to the team and say, look, I've outperformed my deal. I'm through 3 years of my contract. I want to be paid. Do we want to pay him? Haley B, pressured on 25 hits on 39 dropbacks, 64% of the time. Sacked 5 times, 8 quarterback hits, 7 drop passes. This would be Anthony Richardson. I'd be tired, too. Hope they give him time to develop. So much potential. Yeah, that's not good. That's what we'd call conditions that show you're not setting your quarterback up to succeed, right, Haley? And that's been the Colts in a nutshell with him. They're the team that is one of those preeminent teams that get stuck in that in-between spot where they always think they're a contender when they're really not. And then this informs the rest of their judgment. So have your quarterback sit. How can we have our quarterback sit? We're ready to contend now. Bad decision ends up being made. And it's not hard to see how they end up down this road, in my opinion, because of that. But the potential's undeniable. The upside's undeniable. Can you get him there? Do you have the process to get him there? Do you have the supporting cast to get him there? That does remain the question at hand. John says, I thought Olo Atimi was going to be one of those top Big 12 linemen. He looked that way on tape, not in the pros. It's true. Snail says, B, I'm available for general manager. The problem there, Snail, though, is that we end up a bunch of WSU guys, and it works in our favor a little bit, Dayon Henley, yes. Like safety last year, yes. But you're going to go crazy, man. I'm going to end up with 5 of 7 picks of Washington State players, and then you're going to pick a Husky in the 7th round just to clown on the Husky fans in the state of Washington. I can't sign off on that. Sean says, go get the Chiefs number 2 guy. He'd be a good replacement for John. That might be the route to go, is go find a guy kind of as an underling there, up and comer maybe more than the known quantity. War Chief AJ Barner is coming along really well. Liking what I'm seeing from him. Nate says, we should all nominate B to be the new general manager. John's got to go. I don't know what his deal is about not getting more depth on the offensive line. Well, one thing about me you can count on, Nate, as a new general manager for your Seattle Seahawks. You'll never have to question again your offensive line. Be like those politicians, You'll never have to question again whether you can walk out on the streets safe at night because I will be in charge. So I don't know if I'll build a winner. I don't know if I will take you to that mountaintop. But this offensive line will work. This offensive line will be a strength of your team. We will make offensive lines great again. B, we win Sunday and still look to get rid of players. The only thing with it's a not to get rid of players thing is all I'm saying with this with the Walker or JSN or in a couple other guys in this roster who may be guys that people would want to target is if we can be in a seller's market. If there's a team coming to us and saying, hey, you're getting, compensation here that you might not normally get in the offseason or at any other time of year, but we think we're going to go over the top by making this move to get your guy, then jump on that kind of trade. So I'm not in just full on fire sale, go, go, go mode. But if we do lose, and there are those teams that come willing to pay that price, to pay the full market price, right? Not MSRP, but MSRP plus 25%. I'm just saying I might not say no. I might not say no. Greg Brandon, I hear you on not wanting to go D-line again, but missing on Cam Young and Reed, Hankins can't take a bunch of snaps without wearing down, so you have to find another young nose tackle, defensive tackle who can play more. And it's one of those things, Greg, where I go, I don't like the taste of it in my mouth, but it's vegetables, and I might just have to eat them to get my nutrition. So when we come to my kind of raw factor on this through the years, it's a cliche. It's one that's been said ultimately for years in football. We're told in the model analytic age, no, it's more about the skill position players. No, it's more about your secondary. I'm still a guy that says, no, it's the trenches. That's what makes this go or not go. And the investment into those trenches is what can take a team, and really put them up over the top when those can be both dominant aspects of your team. And so if you want to put more in the defensive line, while it causes me some trepidation, your points stand, and there are salient ones. Draymond Jones, another guy on his way out after this year, probably. So, you're going to probably have to do some things. So I get that. I do. It wouldn't piss me off. I just don't want to do it in lieu of completely ignoring the offensive line. That'd be my only caveat. Warchu says, I couldn't handle watching K9 go somewhere else and dominate the league, and all we had to do was help him out. I'm so over that as a Seahawks fan, to be honest. I get it, War Chief. And, I look at this offense and I say, Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker. Those guys are really the guys kind of mostly holding up their end of the bargain by and large. Maybe Lockett a little bit, JSN a little bit. Barner's doing fine in bit of duty, but everybody else kind of like leaves a lot to be desired a bit. So I love K9. I don't arrive there easily, but I don't like paying running backs. And it just does not, to me, it does not add up when you look at the history of paying running backs and the teams that have done it, even looking at our own history and recently doing it. It's not worked out in our favor no matter how much we love that individual back. We loved Chris Carson, but I think you worried about that neck going into that deal. You worried about it, and he still signed it. I think we've got to. Something that stands out to me at times is I think our franchise falls in love with his own players sometimes a little bit too much, and we got to make more of the big end decisions. He's a great back. I love his talent, but we didn't get the thing in place for him to get right, War Chief, and the line's still not in a place to get the most out of him, and it's not likely to be in that place in 2025. You're still kind of looking down the reality of needing to go find 4/5 of your offensive line this offseason, especially if Abraham Lucas can't go. Haynes has not solidified himself enough as a right guard to make you go, oh, that's good long-term. Or Bradford go, oh, yeah, that's fine long-term. And Connor's on a 1-year deal. So you're not likely to give him that next year either. I just kind of come out the wash on that going, hey, it sucks, but it is what it is. SL Hazard, no, we shouldn't keep K9 as much as I love him. He's a finesse player. I want a bruiser who can attack the line like Kyron. Might be more of a better back to get a guy like that. Yeah, might be a better fit. Haley B, there's a player that's made a career year off of mobility and a beautiful deep ball. And a little reference to Russell Wilson, just saying. Trade for Richardson. Well, like I say, I'm on board with it, Haley. You don't have to sell me. I'm already in the car. I got the seatbelt on. Sean says Chris Ballard's made some awful choices. He has to be the most overrated general manager. Well said, Sean. I think he's moving into that role for me too as well. You've got to avoid being stuck in between. And that guy and his approach, there's no vision to what they really do. Everything they do is sort of just year in and year out, just kind of on the fly. And you've got to have a vision. It's one of the reasons I think that we've got to be open to the trade deadline thing here. This has got to be more about a vision than it more is about us being reactionary. We've had to make 3 sort of urgent trades here in the last month and a half or so to try to deal with the defensive line that was not up to snuff or made ready here through this offseason, despite all the assets put into it. You know, you got to get the vision in place. And Ballard doesn't have much of a vision there. Feed Me More Seahawks, thank you for the $2 donation. In the mode of a Reek trade, a 2025 second round pick and a 2026 third, am I wrong? No. Tariq Woolen would indeed be one of the guys included on my list of guys that would be open to be traded at the deadline here. You telling me you can't find a hi sweetie. You're telling me you can't find a team that would love to have a lockdown corner on the outside that can cover anybody in this sport with the length that he brings and his ball skills and give you prime assets back in return. And again, as is a common element you're going to hear from me on this, I like Woolen, but Woolen's not fitting to this defense. Mike Macdonald needs his cornerbacks to tackle. If you don't tackle, that's a problem. I don't think with Woolen it's going to come forward far enough for him for it to work in this defense long term. I'm not saying I'm chomping at the bit to move him, but if there is that team that comes a calling and wants to give me prime draft capital, I would be hard-pressed not to say yes at this point, being that lack of fit. Too many of lack of fits on this team. Too many guys that might be good talents, but don't really fit to what you want to do. And quite honestly, when it comes down to it, I'm not really confident at this point that Macdonald even really wants to run much man-based cover concepts at all at this point. I think he wants to stay in zone and stay in zone at a high prominence of amount of the time. And that's not really what's going to be Woolen's best part of his game, is sitting back in zone all the time. So yeah, feed me. I think it's a smart, and I think I'd be willing to do it. Feed me, thank you for the $2 donation. Cross is the number 1 person we sign, whether this season, a bust. Cross is a guy that I will not be moving. He would be on my untouchable list. I think a guy like Boye Mafe would probably be on my untouchable list. So he would be on there for me too. It's very hard to find left tackles performing where he's performing, and I got no problems at all signing Cross to an extension after this year at all. He's one of the most no-brainer, easy peasy, just get it done kind of things. And also still a very young player, feed me. So I'm with you on both those, brother. Shiesty, thank you for subscribing to the channel, Shiesty. Folks, please do join him and sub on up. Hit that like button if you haven't already here in the show today. Helps me out grow. See, Pumpkin saying hit that like button. Yeah, hit the like button, right? Yeah. So please do hit that like button. Sub on up if you haven't already. And thank you, Shiesty, for joining up on Hawk's Nest. Appreciate you for that. John says it's not a bad thing to let Richardson play to take his lumps, especially when he can mitigate his pass game or their lack of with his legs. Yeah, I'm not as much of a fan of it, John, because I think that that's not what ends up how it plays out. What you end up having is that the quarterback is limited by the answers that he can call upon in what he's dealing with in these defenses, and that they're going to lean upon calling upon the one thing they have in their back pocket, which is those legs, and then they lean on them too much, and then they end up getting injured. The play caller can't call a normal game, John, to let him go through his reads and to run his full play complement of his playbook. So he starts leaning in on more of the RPO option, more of the I'm going to have my quarterback running like a running back option, because that's what he can do and he can't do the other stuff. So I just think it ends up leading you down to the Moore road, John, of creating bad habits, of not advancing the quarterback. Because if you're having the quarterback just running read option principles that he was running back in college, that's not advancing the quarterback. That's causing, in my opinion, a bit of stagnation. And again, bad habits with it, not to mention you're much more likely to get him broke. Turning your quarterback into a running back at the pro level, kind of like the Colts have done with Richardson when they've asked him to get out there and play. Snail says, B, I promise not to pick more than one WSU player every year. I will draft a second round running back every single year. All right, I might let you in on this. I might need that in writing though, Snail, because I don't know with you, man. I don't know. You'll be talking to me about Marcus Trufant's nephew. Sean says Mike Borgonzi is the name of the Chiefs' assistant general manager. He's a hot name. All right. Well, Chiefs have drafted great the past couple of years. I think wide receiver is the only thing that you could really question with them going, it's kind of a miss there. But everything else they do a pretty good job on, especially when in regards to the offensive line. El Nino, I think the coaches just aren't coaching up the players. We got players not filling the proper gaps, missed tackles, missed blocks by linemen and wide open receiver and wide receivers. There's no physicality at the line. Nope. It's very true. Very true. But not during the season, B? All right. Fair enough, Femi. Fair enough. Haley says, okay, proposal. Give the Chiefs DK through the end of the season so they can for sure beat the Niners. Then they give him back. We'll charge a second round pick. Imagine if a team did that. They let it play. That'd be pretty funny if they... I bet the NFL wouldn't allow it, but you allow a rental. Surprised the team hasn't tried that at some point, Haley. Where she says, okay, I'm not backing down with DK. Make him the highest paid receiver in the league for all I care. He's somebody that will fit into whatever scheme you're trying to build here. Yeah, DK would not be one of those people I'd be looking to necessarily move. He was just making a joke. Oof. Lou, you're right. DK does block better than some of our linemen, but some of our linemen are pretty bad blockers. Or just, I'll be honest, I'd rather give some other guys from the quarterback class a chance. It's like having Richardson. Why not give Wilson a chance? I'm open to all options when it comes to quarterback of the future, that's for sure. John says, I think Connor Williams signs along. I think I would sign Connor Williams. Well, it's possible they do. He is going to want to be paid, I think, a good amount, John. I mean, he's in the prove-it contract year where he's already working off just a $3 million deal this year. I think the stance from him is going to be one that he's going to want some significant money going forward, or at least somewhat semi-significant. Nate says, I'm wondering what the Hawks would do, like, say, if Woolen was on last year. Would Macdonald keep him, or would he find his own guys? I feel like Woolen isn't McDonald's type player. I don't think he is either. And Woolen is not on the last year of his deal right now, but he's heading into the last year after this. So you have to make a determination on this coming up, and I just don't think he's a fit. Good player, another player where it's not about he's not talented or that he doesn't have ability. He does, but you're looking at the players that fit truly to the scheme you want to run in full. John, I don't know what the man zone percentage is right now. I don't have those numbers up, but I would guesstimate that you're probably been in zone about 80% of the time. They run half field looks where some of it's sometimes zone man to the other side, but infrequently. As all hazard facts, Brandon, if this isn't a Super Bowl team, then we got to move forward into becoming one. Pieces have got to go and the right ones come in. Kill the draft too for a fast rebuild. That's where it's at. And, as Al Hazard, when I looked at this team and thinking about this over the last couple of days, and I went back and looked at the team in recent history, and you're 29-30 over about your last 60 games played. You're mediocre. And I often say in this stream, you guys know this is one of my many pet theories, and I have my many pet theories, but this is one of them, that the team finds itself in 4 states. You're either rebuilding, you're ascending, you're in between, purgatory, or you're elite. And you don't go from ascending to in between to elite. You go from ascending to elite. And right now, when I look at this team over this past 3 years, I say, oh my God, we're in that place is the one spot where I say we can never be. We've all thought we're growing to something, but in actuality, we've actually been stuck into the in-between. We're in mediocrity. And the problem with being there is that you get stuck there forever. You can't get out. And so what it takes for a team to get out is to make the strong decision and to say, hey, we got to bite the bullet. We got to understand that now is not the right time, and that we have to take all of the proper steps to build up for the right time into the future. And that means building up more maximum draft capital in the future. That means setting up your cap situation in a place that you're not impelled at the moment you are ready to compete to not be able to spend because you've eaten up all of your cap because you got stuck in that in-betweenville. So it's a very important thing. In fact, it's the most important question I think a team can ask itself. And it's one that this team has to be asking itself right now with that trade deadline coming up, with the type of offers that can be on the table. Yeah, I'm very much as I'm arriving at this stage going, I didn't want to be here. I don't want to be at the spot of selling, but I really don't want to be caught in between. Why are the Cowboys in the place they are every year? Because they can't bite the bullet. Why are the Saints in the place they are every year? Because they can't bite the bullet. Why are the Colts in the same place they are every year? Because they can't bite the bullet. We don't want to be there. And I think we're getting a little bit too into that alignment right now. And that's where something's got to get shaken free here a bit from my standpoint. Erickson says, Christopher Walken, pep talk for the Seahawks locker room. Seahawks defense, listen to me now. Hear me now, later listen. Whatever you want to do. But I'm going to tell you now, this doesn't work. Your effort, not there. You're a bunch of lions laying down, letting all the animals pick at you. What are you doing? I'm trying to get you going now, but you got no physical ability. You got no strength, no power. I'm looking every day, all day, game after game, and yet I come out the other side and you're soft. You're like a pillow on my bed, 3 of them stacked, tall and wide. I need more from you, defense, offense. I need more now. You can't even open up a hole. My closet has more space than these holes in the run game. Why? So much money, so many picks, so little effort. No more. Watkins pissed. He's mad. Unfortunate. Phoebe, I agree, B. Maffe's also on my untouchables. I feel like Metcalf is untouchable based on the season. Other than that, I will answer calls okay, but trade, I wouldn't guarantee I would do it unless it's good value. We're pretty much in exact alignment on this one. I have my guys that are untouchable. I am in a place where I will say that the point and the purpose of the trade deadline for me, if I'm a Seahawks front office member, if I'm John Schneider, if I could wear his skin for a moment, and that is to say, I'm not in a mode of fire sale. This isn't we're a catastrophe and we've got to offload like an MNFer at every direction. This is, if we get the prime assets to us, if somebody is going to make a Jamal Adams trade to us, if somebody wants to flip over and lose their mind and go crazy, we will take advantage of that in this time period by where we stand with this team. I'm advocating for that. But there are some guys I would definitely keep off the list on that trade front. John says, what the hell's up with letting Draymond Jones play with one arm? If anyone watched the tape, it's ridiculous. He's doing pass rush moves with one arm. I saw that too as well. Yeah, coaches have got to kind of catch that one. Greg says, I'd rather keep Reek and draft another cornerback that can also play like slot, like Spoon, so that frees you up to move Spoon around more and get Brown off the field when they go to 3 cornerbacks. I'm okay with that approach. John, RG3 was pretty damn effective with running a college offense in the pros. So was Jalen Hurts. I think that's your strength. You let them play that way. Then you can roll out more of the offense as they learn. Yeah, I disagree with that, John. RG3 had his career It's wild that you bring up RG3, and this is the issue with this at times with these quarterbacks. It's like Jaden Daniels right now. You have this guy run like this and play like this, and he doesn't get broken, and your approach seems real smart and great. But these guys, by large, more often than not, end up getting broken. Even in Jalen Hurts' case, in the first year that he started, if I'm not mistaken, by the end of that first year, he had an AC joint problem in his shoulder from all that running that he was being asked to do. And in RG3's case, he had his career basically ended that year by those injuries that he sustained by playing in that manner. I mean, RG3 is more proof to the pudding why you shouldn't do it, John. That's not an indicator of why you should do it. You're kind of twisting that one on what should be the rule of thumb off of the back of that one. That was not a success story. Yeah, it was a thing that worked for a time period, but when we're talking what's best for a quarterback and really what we're talking about here, John, is what's best for a quarterback long-term to grow them to their ultimate upside, to make sure that you don't cause them to fail. That situation with RG3 and turning that Shanahan offense into the Baylor offense caused him to fail and caused him to get broken on top of it, which is exactly the point I make about doing this, and is exactly, John, what the Colts have done here again with Anthony Richardson. I'm surprised that you take this track when there's so many case studies here about it failing. You might be able to find one over here that's a semi-success story. And even in this case of a guy like Hurts, John, the one thing the Eagles had in place was a really great offensive line and good play skill positions on the outside to work with, and good running backs, and setting him up for success and a functional defense. So it's a little different on that one than just purely having him run, he's going to be like a running back there. But I think it's not a great approach myself. I think you're better to try to grow the quarterback to play the quarterback position. And that I don't see a lot of necessarily that you're going to grow a guy and having him run around like a running back. You grow a guy by having him play the position the way it's meant to be played, truly, to be at its most effective. War Chief B, well, hell, man, your O-line pitch has me sold. Brandon for GM Manager, you got my vote. Let's go. Let's go. Jeffrey Thistle, thank you for another $5 donation. He says, I want to send you a signed Ken Griffey Jr. card, the one with his dad, for your background. It needs some M's love in there. I'm down to do it, Jeffrey. Just hit me up you can hit me up on Twitter, or you can hit me up on email. I'll email you my address on that you can send to. So, heyhawksnest@gmail. Hey, Hawks, plural with the S, at gmail.com. So send me that. I'll kick you my address through, and you can send it on down. I'll put it in the back if you send it my way, man, for sure. Thank you for the donation, though. Appreciate it. The Bloody Grimoire. Brandon, figured out that if we can actually get past the first damn snap, we're not that bad. Laughing out loud. Exactly. John, I wonder if the culture they told Mike Macdonald they wanted to keep him was soft zone coverage. Maybe. And that at least make some sense. Addicted Brandon, I know you're going to say no, but doesn't re-signing Damian Lewis at $13.5 million per year sound good now instead of Tomlinson at a 2 non-performing right guards? I would say that it doesn't have to be a binary decision of either Damian Lewis or we take the 2 craptastic non-performing right guards. That there's a 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th other option there, Addicted. Damian Lewis is not the option. And a bit of what I'm railing on this stream right now, a bit to a degree, is having players that might be good, but they're not fits for the type of scheme that you want to run. You have a spread style system. You want to have offensive linemen moving in place or moving out in space and climbing to the second level and pulling back across the formation. That is not Damian Lewis's game. He is a trash can. He's a guy that's going to be a people mover at the point of attack. He can hold up. He's grown his game as a pass protector from the left guard position, but that's who he is. And so I think the big issue that you've got going on a bit right now, Addicted to Hawks, is that you have players that might be good but don't fit the scheme and don't allow the schemes to run at their full flight. And that this would be more of you doing more of the same of that by signing Damian Lewis if you had done that. Feed says, my 4 stages for a player on an evaluation will be basic, improvement, ascending, stardom, and if they move up before, then great. There you go. Haley says, B, it's about 2 years before our cap looks really pretty, but we can free up about $100 million depending on how much we churn we go through. $70 million very easily. Yeah, you have a lot of flexibility in how you want to attack your cap this offseason, Haley. I think some of it's got to inform you by how close you are. If you're not close, I'm not looking at trying to maximize 2025 cap. If this is more of a longer process, and then it's more about just getting to that 26-27 season, bleeding out your blood, bleeding out the bad blood, and then you've got everything kind of freshened up at that point. Loses no strength, no power. Awesome, Brando. So weak. No weightlifting at all. They're just doing a bunch of curls. And that, I need shoulder presses. I need bench, incline. Not strong enough for me. Haley B, honestly, it sucks we didn't move on from Pete like 2 years ago. Kept trying to cling to a window that wasn't there, and now we're paying for it. Yeah, probably should have. Probably should have. I mean, considering, I will say, Haley, the reaction of fans right now, and when you did it even this offseason, you know, which would have been kind of long past the expiration date when you probably should have, and people still freaking out about it. I mean, you know, we might have had a riot at the Renton with some of the fans of Pete, you know, on that part of it. I'm with it, Bay Haley. Get that Anthony. I'm on that Anthony Richardson bandwagon with you if we can make it go. John says, when asked if Macdonald was going to sign a disciplinarian coach, he said, I thought that's why I'm here. Time to put up or shut up. Amen. Amen. War Chief, OKB context of biting the bullet. It's hard for me. I'm old. I thought about it too. To get this team right, I'm willing to let go of K9, JSN, and Reek, but it saddens me. I'm not happy about it either, War Chief. I don't do this as like I'm mad about the situation here or I'm emotionally reacting to it. What I want to do is avoid getting stuck in between. What I want to do is get players in here who purely fit what we want to do in the designs of our offense and defense. All the way along the line. If I have a slot receiver, you know what the slot receiver needs to do in this offense? Be able to run fly sweeps, be able to be good at yak, be able to run block. Those are three things that are missing right now from JSN and from Tyler Lockett, and those guys are starting by and large the majority of the snaps that you're trotting them out there. Tyreek Woolen is a great man coverage defender. You don't run a lot of man coverage concepts, and he still struggles to tackle, still struggles to get off blocks. We just come down to, again, not exactly a fit for what we do then. And so I don't arrive there heartily. K9's a bit of a different deal. It's more about that, just as you, there's a couple factors in with that one. But you got to make these tough decisions to make sure you don't keep yourself stuck in this in-between spot. And we need more difference makers right now. As good as some of these players are, we don't have any difference makers on this football field, really. Maybe absent a guy like a DK. Kirk said, I'd rather give Sam Howell a chance than for Richardson. I'm okay with that, too. I think with it, they're two different kind of players. With Howell, it's more of a, I think he's likely to get to his upside, but his upside's a little more limited. With Richardson, he's got that huge upside. You just don't know if he's ever going to get to it. And Power Code says AR has character issues. Not my cup of tea. So we got some anti AR in the chat on. I'm with it too. Oh. Meow meow. Meow meow. Meow meow meow. Meow meow meow. Yeah. SL, would you guys accept a fire sale if we lose to the Rams at home and they had Aaron Donald retire this past offseason and they would to home after this? I would do a fire sale SL, but I would definitely be in sell mode if you lose. Greg, Brandon, I started watching highlights of Jalen Milroe last night, and he gives me RG3 vibes, which has me intrigued, so I'm going to start watching his film. What's your thoughts on him as a quarterback right now? I'm not a fan of quarterbacks that I can watch and see that they're not natural passers of the football. Jalen Milroe is not a natural thrower. He's an athlete at the position, in my opinion. It doesn't mean he doesn't have an arm or arm strength or that he can't occasionally pump a ball in there. But I don't think that he's a processor from the position. I don't think that he's just a natural thrower. I think he's a guy that will have accuracy issues at the next level. I'm very low on Milroe myself. If you want to go the Lamar Jackson route in his first couple of years and have the running quarterback on the rookie deal and you're just going to use him up and you don't care about the development or the long term on him, you could go that route with it. But if you're looking at having a guy you're wanting to develop as a true blue QB and roll the full allotment of your offense, then probably not him. Sean says AR is inaccurate as a passer and injury prone. He was terrible in college and now terrible in the league. He is who he is. I think it's hard to say he is who he is, Sean. I don't know if we've had enough data on that. He barely started in college. He's barely started in the pros, and the Colts started him very early. I get there's some of you guys are going to have that evaluation of him, and you might be right on it. I do feel like it's early to get into any kind of finality of conclusion on Anthony Richardson when you take into account those factors. Young guy coming out, barely started, should have probably sat on the bench. The Colts threw him out there to fail. He's now failed. So is he a failure, or did the Colts bust the process out and break that? Is it a bit of both? Hard for me to say exactly on that. Still says we beat the Rams 30-17. I'm back on board. Let's go. Hawks Coots, thank you for the $7 donation. Says, do you think we are done this year, or can we turn the tide much? Much love. Hey, well, thank you, Hawks Coots, and thanks for the $7 donation. I appreciate you, my man out there in Canada. Or woman. Don't know for sure. You know that. I don't think we're done. I do think that the season is... In a division like this, Hawks, Coots, anything's possible. You know, second year under Coach Carroll, you went 7-9 and won the division. And that season, through that year, you probably would have gone through a lot of it and said, you know, this isn't a playoff team, this isn't a division winning team, but you got it done. So anything is truly possible in this NFL season when you have a division this tight halfway through the year. Nobody in the division's really jumping forward as some dominant factor. I will say, if I'm trying to predict here and I'm seeing the Niners get healthier and I'm seeing the Rams get healthier and I'm seeing both of those teams playing some of their better ball right now at this time of year, that leads me then to believe that they're going to continue to be at that spot. And the Cardinals have played really well despite a really tough schedule to begin things. And so I am left a little bit wondering if this can be a team that really gets there this year. It just seems like a bit too much. It seems like they have too many things to clean up and clear up to get to that area of things. And the other teams in the division are going to get righter than we are. So I'm more leaning into that mode. I'm still hopeful, but if you're asking me to make a prediction based on what I'm seeing out of this team, you've had 4 of the last 5 games you've been completely embarrassed on the football field. Embarrassed. Not lost, embarrassed. And that's not a team trending in the right direction as we're starting to get past the midpoint and figure out who you really are. We still don't have an identity on either side of the football right now. So I wish I could be more positive for you on that one, but I do think right now, in general terms, yes. But that's not to say that there isn't without some hope that this thing can find some footing, and the talent is still truly there. But there's so much to pick up and clean up and to get right. Ricardo, I think, thank you though, Hawks Scoots. Appreciate the donation. Ricardo, I really think the Seahawks team is more talented than the Rams, but they just don't play like it. It seems like Woolen and Spoon should be able to slow down Rams wide receivers. Agreed. I think that we don't get the most out of a talent. I don't think we have for the last couple of years. There's probably a lot of reasons for it, but that's the reality of what we are seeing out there. John says they tried to play RG3 like Kirk Cousins. It never worked. Trying to make a scrambling quarterback a pocket passer seems counterproductive. I think you can lean into a running quarterback strength to mitigate the risk. And I think it's a roll of the dice, John. And it's again, I'd offer John, what I'd say is if you can go back and watch maybe some of my thoughts at the start of the show today, really getting into the depths of this a little bit more. But, you know, the thing is, what draws to this is the teams are in a rush to play these quarterbacks. That was not always the way that it was. That was not always the lay of the land. There was times in recent past history where teams would sit quarterbacks and have them development because it's a very hard position to learn. And I know that you have a pull in your heart on this one to want to maximize a rookie quarterback contract for certain. You know, let's maximize that rookie contract. Let's turn him into runner. Like I'm saying on this, it doesn't help on the development long-term of the QB. And your look can be at maximizing a rookie quarterback and turning him into a running back for that 3 years and hoping with the roll of the dice that he doesn't get broken. Or you can try to develop a quarterback that can be your long-term answer there, that can be a thrower of the ball, that can learn the offense, that can be a progression reader, that can be a pre-snap reader. I'd rather go for the latter than the former myself. I think the former is a little bit of a lazy approach, and it's one that's approach that has no guarantees to it or no even like Well, more often than not, these quarterbacks don't get broken. It's a pathway that when teams go down, John, it more often ends up leading those teams with a broken QB. You can find outliers. You can find some success stories. Let's see, for instance, if truly Jaden Daniels is going to be able to get through this first year running around like a maniac, right? Not necessarily protecting himself. He almost got injured about 2 weeks ago on a run, 40-yard run, brilliant, 50-yard run, but still running like a running back, not getting down, not playing the position like a quarterback. So, well, we'll see on that. But I'd much rather be a developmental guy than be the turn the guy into a runner guy. And again, the RG thing isn't a success story, John. It's a failure. It's something that if you go to Mike Shanahan and you go back to him, he doesn't look back at that situation, Mike Shanahan, John, and say, yeah, that's what we should have done. What we should have done is turn him into a Baylor quarterback again. He would have said, you know what we should have done? We should have sat him and probably played Kirk. Kirk was more ready to operate our offense at that moment, more able to go through and do the things properly and make RG3 actually learn the sport, not just be an athlete. And then maybe just still to this day, RG3 might still even be playing. But that's just my take on it. Haley, he is who he is, has been disproven on Kirk, Goff, Geno, Darnold, Russ, and Pitt, Mayfield over and over, proven wrong, but will be echoed on every new young quarterback that isn't immediately successful. It will be, and you're right. He is what he is really a statement that shouldn't be said unless you're really sure about it, unless you really have the totality of data that pushes you in that way to inform you like that, Haley. And it's often not for many of the evaluations of these quarterbacks. Jordan says, I'm hesitant on trading Woolen as we don't have a pass rush, so that really allows us to see what he can do. Jimmy says, Jalen Mayrow, Justin Fields. That might be right. Jeffrey A. Thistle, thank you for the $2 donation. Just give us a top quarterback prospects once in my life. That's true. It has been pretty tough for your Seahawks team if you look at through the history of your team about finding those true blue top end quarterback prospects. You got Meyer, you got Dan McGuire, you got Kelly Stauffer, and those are just been about the only potential prospects, and none of them ever really working out, Jeffrey. So eventually it would be nice to get one of those like true blue guys. That is for sure, if it's ever possible. Thanks for the donation. Oh. Stale says, if I were running this offense, I'd be starting Bobo and Barno over Fant and JSN. The lack of blocking is more than the talent gap. Yeah, I'm with you on it, man. Their lack of ability to run block is holding back this offense in a major way. And whatever JSN does as a pass catcher, he's miserable as a run blocker. Miserable. And Lockett isn't much better on what he's bringing. And those guys are out there on the field majority of the time. They just are. Thank you, Haley. Appreciate you. Predicted, yeah, Brandon is noting that AR is kind of like the Geno 1.0 of his career. Maybe give AR more time. No clue what Geno's completion rate was in his first few years. It's probably a little bit better than where we've got with AR. But I do believe in the development cycle. I do believe in allowing these quarterbacks some time to sit and learn, and I think that does help them by and large. I don't think it hinders them. I don't think it hurts them. You know, getting a little bit of that time to kind of sit and learn and evaluate. I don't think you're going to tend to see quarterbacks, if they're given that time to kind of sit and learn, coming off the other end of it, not more improved. Yeah, Jordan's with me, says AR was always a quarterback needed to sit for 2 to 3 years. Amen. And I know that this runs antithesis to what people want to do with quarterbacks in the modern era, but every prospect is individually different. Every prospect needs its own evaluation for what is the proper timeline to put that guy out and have him play. And in AR's case, because of the little bit that he played at college, the seasoning has to happen in college. The seasoning doesn't happen in the pros to get the guy better up to speed. He's got to have started those games at the college level, and instead the Colts are like trying to get him the seasoning now live. Long live the king, in my opinion. Chicago could use more of a GSN, and we could use more of an Odunzie. They have 2 large receivers. Boy, I'd love to put a package together to get Odunzie. That'd be great. And I'd certainly would lead with a JSN if I could on that, King. I doubt the Bears would do it. There's too much bonus money for them to have to eat in that deal to move Odunzie right now. But yeah, that'd be great if you could put something together like that. I love that. Orgy Brandon, my thing is, if you were to take a chance on Richardson, my guy Geno Smith would be the perfect quarterback to mentor him for a year or two. Probably not likely, War Chief. If you're bringing in Anthony Richardson, it's probably a sign that you're going to move off of Geno and you're going to have Sam Howell and Richardson then duke it out for the starting spot. Because with Geno, you've got to make the decision about putting him onto a contract extension after this year. And if you're making the trade for Richardson, you want to commit to Geno for the next 2 to 3 years? Maybe, maybe not. If I'm making the guess on here, I would say not. That it would probably be a Howell-Richardson combination if you're going that way. SL Hazard says, plus, now we're finally understanding what it means to have a first-time NFL OC. Grubb's play calling has been suspect, specifically in the red zone. It has indeed. Has indeed. Long live the King, thank you for the $2 donation. He says, JSN for Odunzie, plus a pick swap with Chicago. I love the idea of it. I do. The only issue with it just becomes the cap, man. Odunzie is a top 10 first-round pick. The first-round picks, I know at one point about 8 or 9 years ago, even if you were a top 10 first-round pick, you weren't being paid a whole lot. I know I get that that's a little bit of the thinking out there that exists. But unfortunately, this is the first year of the deal of the new contract that he signed. So when we go to the bonus money here, and I'm looking it up right now to try to find it if I can here. My cat's freaking out here. She's like, give me just attention and time and energy. Where is it, man? I can't find his freaking name. All right, there we go. So with Odunzie, he is sitting with a $22 million dead money hit. So you just can't offset it. That's the part that gets done. Like maybe Chicago would be willing to do this, King, but first year of the contract, there's a big amount of bonus money given to the players, right? That spreads out over a 4-year period on a rookie deal for a first-round pick. You trade the guy, all of the bonus money accelerates down from year 2, 3, 4 into year 1, which means the Bears would have to eat a substantial amount of dead money to move a Odunzie. So even if they wanted to do it, they couldn't really do it with the way the cap situation works, fortunately. So Hazard, you got to be clever enough to maneuver around your shortcomings. Dick Docs, Brandon, the way Shanahan let RG3 play injured in that last playoff game is borderline criminal. If I was a Redskins Commander fan from those days, I would have been ticked off. It's a representation of the exact point I'm trying to make a bit to John on this one in saying that Shanahan was not being driven there by doing what was best for Griffin. Shanahan was being driven by what was best for him. For him there in Washington. And unfortunately, this is what causes a lot of teams to drive that situation at the QB. And that's all well and good, except for the fact that you don't then develop the QB at the best rate. You're in a panic mode. It's like, when they say don't make a decision when you're in fear or in anger, same kind of thing. If you're panicking, if you're worried about your job, and you're starting to make these decisions, you're not making them for the right reasons. And I do remember when he still trotted him out there injured. For a kid that was a rookie that year, that was looking to have a long career ahead of him, and you're out there having to trot out on a major injury that no business, he should have overruled him at that time, but Shannon was out worrying about other things. Haley says, one of my best friends was a Commanders fan back in the RG3 days. He stopped watching football when they ruined RG3. I think, as Dick says above, Haley, almost criminal. Almost criminal. And it's got to be an example point that you look to. Let other teams make the mistakes. Let other teams make those horrific mistakes that you go, I'm not doing that. Washington went out there and got a tongue ring. And we go, They can barely speak. I can't understand them when they try to enunciate. I don't think we're going to do that. I'm not going with the tongue ring. He says, I saw RG3 take a hit so damn hard, I thought he was murdered right in front of me. Haley B, Geno's strengths are also AR's weaknesses. Accuracy, pre-snap, quick reads. Literally not a better teacher for him. Yeah, it's a sit thing for him and just sit and watch the game a little bit, I think, with him. More even than, it'd be good to have a veteran presence there, but it wouldn't be the ultimate thing I'd have to go to. And it may be easier with me on Geno if Geno was not due for that contract, but it's kind of sitting over the top of things. Ricardo says history is repeating. Jaden Daniels is going to last much longer than RG3. Neither are built for football. It wouldn't surprise me if it happened again. And once it does, there'll be people right back around saying, go do it again with another guy. It's like, no, don't do it. Jaden Daniels is such a great talent, but you can see on the college tape that there's some out of control nature there to him. And here we go, rolling the dice. Is this going to be the hit that destroys his career, destroys a knee, that removes his mobility, a big part of his game? Real Cheese, thank you for the $5 donation. Parkinson, Disley, and Fant. Who would you have kept? I really liked Colby, mainly because he's so tall, and I thought he was a pretty good player. Well, I can attest to the fact in talking directly with Rams fans that there is definitely some buyer's remorse when it comes to Colby Parkinson there. And it's not because Colby Parkinson can't play. It's because Colby Parkinson is limited as a player, and the Rams didn't pay him like he was a limited player. They gave him pretty good money in free agency at the tight end position. So I would not have gone to Parkinson. I would have kept Disley, and I would have moved on from Fant. The thing that Disley brought, I thought, was a very consistent manner of play. He was a good all-around player. You can trust him as a blocker. Fant was going to cost substantially more. The other part with this Real Cheese was the dead money. That there was an offset to the whole Disley deal where, we'll look at it right now. Yeah, you're currently paying $3.1 million of your cap is right now ascribed to Will Disley. So it was also that you could have just kept him on the same cap hit and it wasn't going to be that substantially more. You didn't save that huge amount of money to release off of him, Real Cheese. So I would have stuck with Disley. I think some of his they didn't trust. I think his health is much there. But Parkinson a little over both Parkinson and Fant overpaid. I will say it's interesting. If you look at like the top 20 wide receivers in the sport right now, rated by PFF, there's like 5 of the top like 15 or 20 are guys that are either Seahawks or were right now or were drafted, were drafted as Seahawk players at one time, like a Nick Vannett. John's kind of got a pretty good eye overall for tight ends for the most part. It's one of those positions he does pretty well. Ricardo's with me. He would have kept Disley. So I'm not alone on that one. Have a good night, SL Hazard. Appreciate you, brother. The Docs Brandon, you're probably right about Shanahan's career decision-making choices, but ruining a stud quarterback just says, kick me out the door ASAP. Yeah, agreed. And that's the great irony of it, right? Addicted. That's where these coaches and organizations get so short-minded where they end up arriving to the stage of the thing that they're directly trying to avoid. And it's why I harp on this so much is that it's this thinking of the sitting and the waiting is like, you can't do that. We don't have the time for that. We can't wait for that. But it's the thing that will get you to the end line of where you're trying to reach. And you're choosing all these other paths that aren't going to get you there. So yeah, I agree. It was an awful decision, awful move on his part. I mean, it wasn't like that Washington team, if they got past Seattle, was going to beat that 49er team that year. They weren't going to get through them. Especially with he was obviously hobbled at that point. He was not moving around anywhere near 100%. He was like 78% of Robert Griffin. Ricardo's defense all right, but he can't block that well, and he's not the difference maker tight end. We need to stop paying medium money for medium talent. Amen. Amen. Or B, I think since this quarterback class isn't looking so hot, we just try our luck with the best available quarterback in the rookie class for money and give him a shot. We have nothing to lose. It's possible. And if you're not going to sign Geno and you're not going to make a trade for a quarterback, then you're likely looking at a QB somewhere in this draft, War Chief. Somewhere. To your point on that. Good time right now to thank the sponsor of the show, which is Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy has been sponsoring us for the last couple of years here. They've been kind enough to do that, and they've got a great ongoing deal right now, a 2-for-1. So for every $2 you spend, $1 back in your pocket, all the way up to $2,000 and $1,000 back in your pocket right now when you use my code NEST. Or click the link in the description section below directly to Underdog Fantasy site. That the code will already kind of be built in there at that point. And they'll match you up 2-to-1 on that. They've got some great contests right now. You got 3 different sports you can be getting on at once here with the baseball, with the basketball, with the football, all going at once. Put your parlays together. Go head to head with other fans out there. You don't have to beat the house. You can just beat other fans. Hey, is your fantasy team done? Did you already get knocked out of your league? Are you frustrated by that? Well, hey, go over to fantasy. You can do a weekly fantasy league. You can get in a weekly new team. Get yourself back. Get your strategy right for next year so you can go back and beat your team, get your thing back right on that side of it. But use my code today, NEST. Head over to Underdog Fantasy. Show the love over there. Get a little bit extra dough in your pocket. And hey, support the show at the same time. A couple other news and notes here as we wrap on up. I do have a clips channel here on the channel on this side of it right now going. If you guys aren't aware, it's a separate channel of this channel. It's the Hawks Nest Clips channel. I'm going to be continuing to get some clips over on that side of it from these live stream shows. If you're looking for more of the bites, so to speak, instead of the 4-hour timeline that we tend to be on when we go live here. So do get subbed up over on that side as we got that cooking. I'm going to probably be over on the Twitch side of things as well here, streaming on that here tonight. So you might be able to catch me over there if you guys want to pop over there. I have the link below to my Twitch name. It's the Seahawks Nest on Twitch is where you can find me over there as I'm doing more and more streaming over there with some of the games that are out and stuff, just to have a little bit more of it's more of low key, more of light, more of just laid back on that side of it. Let's get the last couple questions in from you guys, then we'll kind of put a bit of a button on this one today. I appreciate everybody being so kind as always in the chat. It's a great discussion. Snail says, being Shanahan's defense, RG3 was forced on him. He wanted to start Cousins. Dan Snyder was pushing RG3. Yeah, I mean, but was Dan Snyder then forcing him to start when he was injured? And then with Shanahan's part, Shanahan wasn't like a first-time coach. That's a guy that was a Super Bowl winning coach, a multiple Super Bowl winning coach. He's got the owner telling him what to do on who to start, not to start. I don't know if I buy all that necessarily. I think Shanahan swung a much bigger stick to be able to determine that at that point in time of his career of what he was and wasn't going to do. But I mean, you might be right. I hadn't heard that story, so maybe that is right. I certainly can't think, though, if you as a coach know that guy's injured, you're not trotting him out there injured like he was. I can't not believe that the medical staff told Shanahan that if he goes out there and plays, that there's a really good chance this thing gets mighty worse. Longlive says, one thing I miss about Waldron is he knew how to play big boy football with 2 to 3 tight end sets. It's true. It's true. What's up, Herbicide? You caught us right at the end, man. Sorry. Right at the end. Addicted Brandon, besides ruining RG3, I wonder what the rest of the healthy starters thought about Shanahan. Bum Phillips kind of rode Earl Campbell until he broke, but Shanahan, still worse. Yeah. With Bum, it was just him running the system. Bum wanted to run. Bum wanted to run a lot. Wanted to run a lot on the inside. Keep going at you all the time. That was Bum Phillips. With Shanahan, he knew better. He was a smarter offensive mind on that point. Cardo says, yeah, Disley playing healthy was unexpected, but he's playing really well. He is, man. He is. He's rocking that hard bald look too, It's not even like where it's thinning, but it's just full bald. I think you get 10% tougher as a player when you go full, when it goes the U bald thing. When you get that U where you still got the hair around the sides. Kind of getting there closer myself right now, to be honest with you on that. Riverside, I wish the Seahawks could get it together too, man. We'll see if maybe this week this can turn around. Space is thinking about having AR as our quarterback. Thoughts? I'm open to making a trade on it, Spade. I think that the Colts have messed the situation up. I think the kid needs some time on the bench to figure things out. I don't think he's necessarily ready to start right now, but if they want to take a little bit of a lower pick, I ain't giving you a first. I ain't giving you a collection of picks. But if they were open to this offseason, making a move there, I'd be open to it. I like his talent. I still trust in his upside. And I don't think the Colts have developed him properly. The Seahawks look great for the Detroit game and the Atlanta game. Why can't we get that all the time? The offense looked pretty good in the Detroit game. You couldn't really run the ball that much. Atlanta game, they looked pretty good. But the defense didn't look good in either of those games. Well, the Atlanta game defense looked good, but not the Detroit game. The defense has kind of been what it's been, or Herbicide on that front. The offense has been better by and large. The defense has been what it's been. Phoebe says, Ivan the Terrible, that's why Will Disley isn't hurt anymore. Thoughts? It could be. We might have the smoking gun, Feed Me. We might have the smoking gun. Ricardo, just a small nugget of copium. The 2023 Dolphins got dog walked by the Bills and still were a somewhat competitive team. Well, there we go. Maybe we can turn around and do the same. Everything's still in the grasp. Still in the grasp. Greg, Odunze is an X receiver, so if the Hawks traded JSN for him, would he become a big slot, or would Tyler get moved to slot and Odunze becomes the new Z? I'd rather trade JSN for Amari Cooper and put Tyler in the slot. Odunze would turn into the Z. The way it works in my mind on this, Greg, is that X's can be Z's. Z's can't necessarily be X's. X's got a hard way of life and having to get off press coverage by and large. Z's get free releases. All receivers can benefit from having free releases. So Odunze would be on the outside. Lockett would be probably kicked inside from that. And with Amari Cooper, of course, he just got moved to the Bills, so he's not going anywhere anytime soon. Herbert said, I don't know if we played good in that Lions game, buddy. I don't know if I'd come back out of that and be like, we were really playing good. As was said above on that, you for the first time in modern NFL history, their quarterback didn't have a pass hit the ground. (42-29). I don't know. Yeah, I think you got worked pretty good by Detroit on. I think that I'd go more that was an embarrassing loss to me, along with a lot of the collection of these ones. A quarterback goes 18 for 18 for 300 yards. It's like you got worked. You got worked. You got mail. Say LB, hear me out. Instead of AR, Gardner Minshew and Cam Ward equals Super Bowl. Well, if you say so, brother. If you say so, man. Yeah, I hear you. They all hear you. I know. Herbicide, what's up with our cornerbacks, the Rams? They all playing? Is Joby starting? Joby's in competition with Trey Brown. Trey Brown's expected to come back, but it's a competition, so I don't know who starts on that front. Tariq Woolen will be your other starter, and then, of course, Devin Witherspoon will be your slot. Hand Grenade says, so all X's can be Z's, but not all Z's can be X's. What? X is a wide receiver. It's reference to a wide receiver positioning, Hand Grenade. I'd go take a look up on what is an X receiver and what's a Z receiver, but in basic terms, X is up on the line of scrimmage. Z is a yard back behind the line of scrimmage. So a corner can press an X, a corner can't press a Z. So a Z gets a better chance at free releases. So if you got a guy like Tyler Lockett that can't get off press coverage because he's about 5'9" and he's got short little arms, and if you got guys that are going to press him, he's not going to go anywhere real fast. You put him as a Z, he gets his free releases, he can go run. You got a big monster like DK Metcalf who's super physical and beefy. He can go up on a guy who's going to press him up, and he can knock that guy in his butt and run right past him. So that's that basic difference on X and Z's, basically. Owen says, call me crazy, but NFL teams need to spice up the NFL viewing experience. I don't know what, but add something to entice fans to come to an NFL game. I don't know, Owen. I mean, this is that thing I come to where it's like, this is the new generation fan thing for me, Owen, that I can't quite cross this bridge. Some of you younger folks or the new generations of fans are asking me to cross. For years, fans went into the NFL stadium and they showed up, and I know they have more options now than ever with the internet and all the things you can go do, but you didn't need to have like a circus being played out or a skydiver dropping down on the field in order for you to just enjoy the football game and the action that you got to saw. You know, this is a little bit of like that thing that people say about, man, why do we have no people showing up in the stadium? Well, if they were giving us a reason, or why aren't you being as loud as you once were? Well, they got to give us a reason to be loud. It's like, there's this kind of thing now fans do where they go, the team's got to do A, B, C, D, and E. And if they do that, then they'll get this from me. And that's fine. I'm not saying that it's not unreasonable to say that, but at the same point in time, it's a new thing. We in the 80s didn't say, we're only going to be loud when our Seahawks are good. We in the 80s didn't go, well, you know, man, can they maybe get a little bit of like, I don't know, you know, can we do some drag racing at like halftime maybe, you know? Can we maybe get a concert halftime with it, you know? And I don't know, you know, I mean, just maybe it's what we got to do now, you know? Maybe that's the new reality on it. I don't think it's crazy. It's a common thing, kind of something that gets mentioned a little bit. I just, you know, Owen says, I'd do anything for an opportunity to go to Seahawks game. Well, that's good to hear, Owen. I do hear from some folks that they'll tell me that, you know, I ain't going to go unless they're good. I'm not going to be loud if I'm in the stadium unless they're playing well. And you start to go, boy, that's our new, you know, standard or model. And you go, boy, I hope not. No, they're not shopping cup anymore, Space. That was only if they're going to, I think, lose to the Vikings. They're going to start to go down that road. So, the Ghost of Pete C, the game. The Ghost of Pete C, you might have to type that in again, man. I don't know what you're writing in on that. Maybe I missed you above on that. Mofo, I think something that should give Hawk fans hope this week is the Seattle struggles against elite trench play. All 4 of our losses went against elite line play. The Rams don't really have that. I mean, maybe not on defense as much, though they've got their defensive line, Mofo, does a really good job in generating pressure. They're not as good at stopping the run. Some of what's held back their offensive line at times this year, Mofo, is that they've had Alaric Jackson suspended, and they've had injuries to guys like Noteboom and Avila. But it's my understanding that those guys are by and large coming back for this football game. Riverside says the Bills wanted me to take a break from football. Riverside says a little disappointed in my town for not showing up. Yeah, me too. I understand there's stuff to do and the games are expensive, and the points that have been raised are understandable ones, but it does still slightly disappoint me to hear at times on the, you know, they got to meet me more halfway rather than they get my allegiance. I'll do my part every week, you know, and my team may or may not, but I will be doing what I can do as that fan in that stadium. But I get the price aspect of it. Congratulations to the Dodgers, man. Main Street Paul. Congrats. Dodgers get it. Baseball, where the mighty dollar can, the best lineup in pitching can buy you. Nah, congrats to the Dodgers. I'm a bitter bitch about that. Just the way it is. All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up on that note, folks. Got through all the chat here today. Thank you to all the folks that donated in the chat today. Real Cheese, Long Live the King, multiple times over. Jeffrey Thistle, multiple times over. Hawks, Goots, Phoebe Moore, Seahawks, Randall McDaniel, Thomas Cox, Sages, Jeffrey Thistle, Jordan. Appreciate you, Sanchez. Thank you for all the donations and support to the channel, as you guys are amazing every single time I go live. Never without fail. And I really appreciate you. You guys are allowing me to do what I do here on this channel. And even on years like this, I love what it is I get to do. So thank you for that support. Thanks for showing that love and helping me along the way. If you guys could for me, hit that like button on the way out the door, as it does help this then show up on algorithms of fans looking for explanations for why this Hawk team ain't running fully bore yet. You can help them understand a little bit better by hitting that like button and showing them up on their searches for them on that side of it. And sub on up if you're not already, as this is where we're trying to get that 20,000 mark. And I got it right in my sights, and we're moving. We're motoring to that mark. So help me get there. Help us get up over the top of that point. Get subbed on up here today. But by and all, thank you for watching today. I really appreciate you. My chat, you guys are amazing as ever. I love the discussion. I love where our mind's at. I love that there's a lot of positivity still here within this fan base, despite the fact that for the last 5 games, you've had some real tough outcomes that you have been handed. And I think that we're taking it pretty well in stride. I think in some of the other spheres out there, of the Twitter sphere that's out there, and some of the discussion here out there, it can get a little toxic and fans getting super impatient. But I think in here, people have been pretty level-headed on this and understanding that this thing's going to take a little bit of time. That's okay. It's not the worst of results. We hoped for something to be quick, but if it wasn't going to be quick, we always understood the next mechanism that needs to be click into place is patience. And that's definitely something that I will second, along with a lot of others out there this week right now, is that we've got to give this thing the time for this to take root. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't be aggressive here if we do get this loss on Sunday as far as that trade deadline. Don't miss out on an opportunity in the name of patience. I appreciate you watching. Thank you guys for that. I will be back tomorrow with the B&B show. We've also got the 5 o'clock show tomorrow for members of the channel, which is going to be the, of course, the Thursday night game. So do join me over there if you remember the channel there. I'll put that in the community post on that side of it. So until that time here at 12 o'clock tomorrow, B&B show, Pacific Standard Time. See you very shortly. But until that time, please, by God, yes, we just come off a brutal loss, but don't you ever forget. Never. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Go Hawks.